I'm going to call to order the School Board of Education meeting, August 23rd, 2022. Here we have roll call.
Jess Redonio,
Here.
Carlos Avia,
Here.
Angela Steckity,
Here.
Laura Coyle,
Here.
Kevin Marin,
Here.
Leah Conover, Adina Hoover.
Here. And we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session to discuss negotiations, student discipline, and personnel.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Conover, Ms. Steckity,
Yes.
Ms. Coyle,
Yes.
Mr. Marin,
Yes.
Ms. Redonio,
Yes.
Mr. Avia,
Yes.
Ms. Hoover.
Yes. We'll restart our open session for this August 23rd school board meeting. We'll move along the agenda with the approval of minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the August 9th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the first closed session of the August 9th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved. Second.
All those approve?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the second closed session of the August 9th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll enter into public comment. I'll read our guidelines briefly. Public comment is a time for the community to address the board with comments and questions. Each community member addressing the board has 5 minutes. Once you've been notified of your time is up, kindly step away from the podium. Public comment will be for 30 minutes, no more than 20 minutes for each topic. Please understand, this is not an engagement time. The board will consider your comments in its decisions. For those comments and questions requiring a follow-up response, the board president or superintendent will follow up. And we have Chris Winfrey.
At the podium, please. Yes, thank you.
Chris Winfrey. My daughter attends Westmont Junior High School, and apparently most of you probably know the air conditioning went down last year, and we were told that over the summer it was supposed to be fixed and stuff, and we were finding out that it's still not fixed, and that I'm waiting on the board to approve everything. I'm just wondering what's gonna be done to alleviate the stress on the kids in the meantime till this air conditioning gets fixed. And I'm hoping that you guys will push this up the ladder of things to do, because it's been over a year. It was last year, now it's gonna be another year. I know it costs money to fix air conditioning and stuff like that, but we're in a room right now with air conditioning. Just put the heat up to 80 degrees in here and stuff, go to work, put the temperature up to 80 degrees. Nobody likes it, and I'm not sure, but my daughter's probably gonna start struggling and stuff because it's hard to sit still when you're sweating in class. You're walking up and down the hallways, kids have body odor and they smell and stuff like that. They have gym class in the morning and things like that. And we still got maybe another month of 80-degree weather, and then if it's not fixed by the time next year comes around, or it's gotta be done over the summer because it can't be done with kids in the school or something, they're gonna suffer again. And then maybe next summer rolls around again and it's still not fixed. So just hoping that you guys will prioritize this as a thing, or find some way to accommodate if the big units on the roof can't be fixed, maybe get some portable air conditioners in every room, not just some of the rooms, but every room. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll move, we don't have any other public comment. We'll move to the consent agenda.
Introduction, new staff.
Yes, sorry, number 2, introduction of new staff.
And at our first board meeting after the start of the new school year, we typically invite our new staff to attend so that the board can put names and faces all summer long. They're approving the personnel action, and so this way they can put names and faces together. So we'll, in food service, we have LaQuay Poole, who I don't think is here this evening. And then at South School, we have Veronica Williams Hall, who's a new teaching assistant. For Miller School, I'll invite Tim Weiler, the building principal, to invite his new staff.
You have 2 here tonight, if you don't mind joining me.
So 2 of 5. Tim Weiler, principal at Miller School, here to introduce 2 of our 5 new staff members that that made it out tonight. So we have Nurse Margaret Todd, who is a Westmont resident, and she's here as our nurse for the school year. We've been meeting with each other every day and really off to a great start, so we're very happy to have a full-time nurse in the building. And then we have Mrs. Vanessa Fry. It's her birthday today, so she is back with us. She was a 4th grade dual language teacher few years ago, and then came back as our instructional coach. So we're really excited to have her work in both Miller and Manning this school year. So please.
Thank you.
Welcome. We also have 3 others that could make it. Stephanie Glitto, Westmont resident. She's first grade teacher this year. We have Nicole Stancy, also Elmhurst resident. She had stuff going on tonight. She's a kindergarten teacher. And then we have Alyssa Presswich, TA. She's getting her master's in reading and literacy. So she's a TA, a part-time TA in the district, and a Westmont resident. So we're really happy to have awesome staff. You'll also get to meet a couple more that will be sharing buildings. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And introducing the Manning staff is Lindsay Peterzak, building principal.
Mrs. Fry gets to come up again, because she is, because it's her birthday, which I did not know, and now we get to make extra celebration. So Mrs. Fry is the instructional coach for both Manning and Miller. As you know, we share our instructional coaches, so we're really excited that Mrs. Billy has a teammate again. Thank you to her for joining the team. And then we have which we did introduce before, but Mrs. Jada James is our new assistant principal, and I don't know where to stand, y'all. We're a team here together. Mrs. James is our assistant principal, and she has gotten a welcome dose of Manning fun in several parent events and community events already, and we welcomed the kids last week. And Mike Rose started today as a teaching assistant. We actually welcomed him through connecting through some PTO events that we want to bring him into, and then talked him in and lured him in to be a part of our CUSD 201 community as well. So we're really excited to have him as a part of our community. So welcome to our new Manning staff.
Thank you. Welcome.
And Amy Quattrone, principal for Westmont Junior High, will introduce her new staff.
Good evening. It's so nice to see everybody again. Happy new school year. Very excited to be here and very excited to introduce our new Panther family members. We have Sarah Payne. She's teaching literacy for us in 6th and 7th grade. We have Nick Kaprowski, who's teaching band for us, and he's also a part-time teaching assistant. We have Mike Lipinski, our new assistant principal. And we have John Cortez, who is our part-time industrial arts teacher and also part-time teaching assistant. Welcome.
Welcome. No birthdays, I guess. Okay. Okay.
And Westmont High School principal Jack Balderman will introduce his staff.
Hi, everybody. Great to be with you. We are very fortunate. After a very thorough search, we came up with what we think is the best candidate, Ms. Laura Lopez, for our assistant principal position. Laura joins us. She was previously a dean at Elgin High School. She brings a lot of experience and background in special ed, but most importantly, she brings a great love for young people, a huge heart, along with her talent and her dedication. We're very excited to have her as a leader in our building. So, Laura Lopez. Not with us tonight is Coach Cyrus Martin, who I want to thank Jamie Max and Kevin Carey for making that happen, because he's in the final year of teacher preparation. So we had to make some things happen to get him on board, but I'm very grateful for that. He's training to be in the Olympics, and he's also our assistant cross-country coach. So that's exciting for our kids and our program. And I got to give a shout out to Rainey Kaplan, because she recruited him to our district. So we're also very excited to have Coach Cyrus with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Tiffany Teresi is our new Director of Student Services, and she'll introduce some new student services staff.
Good evening, everybody. We have two student service staff who serve multiple buildings. So we have Bridget Gilmartin, who's our new social worker. She comes with a number of years of experiences in social work. She is supporting both Miller Elementary and South Preschool this year. So we're very excited to have her. And then we have Jessica Zielinski, our new school psychologist, also an experienced school psychologist coming to us with a number of years of experience. She is currently serving the high school and Miller School as well. So we are very excited to welcome these two ladies to our team. As I'm sure many of you know, the resignation for both these positions came kind of late in the game, and so we were super excited and fortunate to find such strong and highly qualified candidates. They have hit the ground running already this year, so we've welcomed them with a bang, but we are very excited to welcome them to our team.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And of course, sitting to my right, joining the district, Anthony started with us in May, but technically July 1 is when he took over as our CSBO, Anthony Urelli. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming and being introduced and taking time out of your schedule. It's great to see the faces with the names. So thank you for all of your work that you have done and will do for our district. Thank you.
And you can go now if you like.
Stay.
That was a great time.
Go.
We understand.
Doesn't get any more fun.
You can't go. Sorry.
Yeah, Anthony can't go, but.
Yeah, not Anthony.
Yeah, no, Anthony.
You guys can all stay
Hi.
too. It's real fun. It's real interesting.
So I'll start and go ahead and go down the list with our consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. 1, personnel recommendations. LaCue Poole, food service, general worker. Michael Rowe, special education, teaching assistant. Margaret Todd, Miller school nurse. Veronica Williams Hall, special education, teaching assistant. Cyrus Martin, teaching assistant. Michael Torres, food service, general worker. Mary Tucker Minot, food service, general worker. Chris Banasiak, part-time custodian. Victoria Oliver, certified nursing assistant. Adam McDaniels, sophomore boys basketball coach. Allison Burns, assistant director, fall play, WHS. Number 2, ratification of July 2022 regular payroll. Number 3, approval of August 2022 expenditure report. Number 4, resolution abating the working cash funds.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move to information and discussion and move into our ISB presentation for the superintendent search.
Good evening. Glasses. Nice to be back. I know you've had a very good start to your school year. I think the kiddos have had about 4 days, and it sounds like you're off to a wonderful start. For anyone who was not here last month or when I was here recently, Patricia Vineyard, retired superintendent from the LaGrange area, one of the consultants with IASB and assisting the board with this search. I think they probably know you, Al.
I'm Al Mulvey. I also am with the Association of School Boards, and it's nice to be here tonight. And I think you should have made them all stay as part of their meeting. I think that would be good, so.
We're happy to be here tonight. We have 2 key purposes. One is to share the results of the online survey, and the second is aspects in that survey drive some of the information that is in the announcement of vacancy that will be disseminated widely. And then just thirdly, we're here for any other questions you might have about the process at this time. So I'm going to hand out the first document and just want to make sure there's one for all. Pardon me? Oh, okay. Thank you. There we go. Sure all the board members have one.
Thank you, Al.
I will start by saying when I was here last, something that there was quite a bit of conversation about, and I will say, I think, I would say more than I typically hear from a board, and that is how important it was for you that this reach as many people as possible. that you wanted a strong turnout and a significant, or, you know, an amount of time was spent talking about how can we make sure this reaches people. And so your efforts paid off. There was a very, very strong turnout, very high numbers responded to the survey. You see below each of the little boxes the number of folks for each one of those stakeholder groups. It's a self-reporting system, so 122 individuals who completed it marked that they were staff members, 282 indicated they were parents or guardians, and 101 community members. And again, kudos to you for caring so much that you found a number of avenues and ways to get the word out. So a couple of things to say about this. One was, as you know, there was a section where there were 15 key characteristics, traits that superintendents should possess. And we asked persons who took the survey to indicate the 5 they thought were most important. And do we think all of them are important? Yes, and I'm sure you do too. Do we look for all areas of expertise? Yes, we do. We look for a well-rounded, knowledgeable person. However, as we've said previously, every district, there's some particular skills or area of expertise that perhaps kind of bubble to the top. And so you see the number of people who marked, and we truncate it here on this. It's a longer statement, but you see the summary of it here. You see the number of people who marked that as in their top 5. And so we then synthesize that across all 4 groups to find the 8 or so that are the most important to this community. And I'm not going to list those for you right now because you'll see them in just a moment on the announcement of vacancy. Then they also respond to questions about what kinds of experiences, previous experiences, do they want a candidate to have, and Al's going to speak to that, highlight those results.
And as you can see with these 4 questions, they're just a simple yes, no. The first question was having to do with teaching experience. Should previous teaching experience in a K-12 setting be required? And all groups, there was an overwhelming yes on that. With the second one, previous experience as a K-12 principal in some setting, in some configuration, whether that be elementary, high school, or junior high, but at least in a K-12 type of environment. That was an overwhelming yes for the most part, all the way across the board in all 4 respondent categories. The third one, should the next superintendent have previous experience in a district level position? We just kind of leave that, broad. It could be as an assistant superintendent. It could be as a director or coordinator of curriculum, business, whatever, business manager, but at a district level in terms of responsibility. And again, that was a pretty significant response that yes, that would be something that we would want in a superintendent to have, at least have had district level experience. Mm-hmm. The fourth one is another filter that we include in that, at least for getting input, and that is the previous experience as a superintendent in a K-12 setting. And that's something that was probably a little more the other direction. Most of the respondents did not really seem to think that would necessarily be a requirement. Obviously, an experienced superintendent is something that we hope we would look for. But at the same time, as I indicated, and as Dr. Vineyard indicated too, there's a lot of very quality candidates who are in that district level setting as an assistant superintendent or whatever their title may be. And so I think that's something, and the respondents kind of felt the same way, that that's not necessarily a requirement or a prerequisite. And I think, as I indicated too in my presentation, sometimes if that's a requirement by a board, and that's how we'll go into the screening, but requiring somebody to have been a superintendent or currently a superintendent, that provides a filter that really narrows down the pool. And so we have to be cognizant of that as we approach looking for the quality candidates. But those were kind of the trends in terms of the yes-no questions there.
Yep. Thank you, Al. So you will see the impact of these responses in the announcement of vacancy that you'll see in just a moment. The only other thing I want to say about the survey, and then see if there are any questions before we move on to the announcement of vacancy, and that is there was a place for open comments, as you know. And so those, I have copies. I'll leave them with you, Shannon. There's one copy for every board member, and then one set for the district. It's about 10 pages typed, single space, so there's obviously not something you could look at right now, so I'll give those to you to share with the board before they leave tonight. And so that's people's perceptions, that is for your information, and occasionally there will be themes that will emerge, for example, about communication or what have you, that might impact questions that you would think about as you're preparing your interview questions. Nothing in particular jumped out at me as a theme that might be a question, but I'll take another look at them, and I'll be coming back to talk to you about some of the interview protocols. So with that statement said, any questions about the survey? Yes?
So this might actually be for you guys, but how many staff members do we have?
Certified staff is about 120, I think, certified.
And then like...
And total employees were about 200.
Okay.
220, somewhere.
So just to I just want to be able to put it into perspective because percents don't lie. So we're talking about roughly 60% of our staff filled out this survey, which is awesome, more than half, and about 25% of our parent population. Now, I'm doing a super rough, back of the envelope with parents. We've got roughly 1,200 kids in the district. Some parents have 2 kids, some parents have 4 kids, some parents have 1 kid. I'm assuming we've got roughly 1,200 parents in the district for that kind of 24%.
Yeah, well, we have a little over 900 school families.
There you go. And not necessarily all of them are
Right.
are the same. So with, 2 parents. So in any event, that's well over 20%, which is also a significant part of the population. And on the community members, that's a little bit harder to do, 100 community members. But considering I think we had 3 community members fill out the last survey, I'm gonna take 100 plus as a real big win.
That's one of the highest numbers, I would say probably the highest number that I've seen for a community response.
This was great. This was
Awesome.
a really great response. All the categories. Staff.
Superior response. So
Awesome.
Thank you.
And then my other kind of comment question is, I guess for you guys, do we start a superintendent search page on the website where all of these documents can live so that the public can get to them? And for you guys, is there any, and this might be for both of you, is there any legal reason or confidentiality reason that we cannot post the comments? They're all anonymous, but because our board wants to be as transparent as legally possible, right? So if we want to, I'm going to ask that this stuff gets posted in board docs, whatever we can post, and I know that there's some executive content, but is there any reason why we could not post those?
I will answer and then ask my colleague here, Al, to feel free to dissent if you feel differently. Typically, the comments are not shared publicly. And there are, if there's something defamatory, we say that in the survey, we will edit that out. However, short of that, someone can take a pot shot or start a campaign or what have you. And so typically, boards choose and we recommend that the public comments are kept confidential. Do you feel any differently?
No, I agree. And the survey summary itself is certainly something that you could post in some form and make the public aware of it. But I think that we do tell districts the survey in and of itself is ours, and the open comment section was obviously optional for you as a board to make available. But we at the same time we feel that it's important to hope that those respondents thought there was some confidentiality in it, and there could be some names mentioned that we didn't edit out, and there could be some people who might try to figure out who's being or what's being referred to in the comment itself, and that kind of creates more problems than you as a board really need to have. And so we would definitely say that the comments themselves should not be posted. They're for basically they're for your information. They're for the board's collecting of information as we move into the next phase of the search process itself. And so I think that that's how we would respond to that. But certainly the numbers, the survey numbers something that.
Thank you. And thank you also for, I had forgotten that the survey is not ours. It is yours, right? You guys created the survey. It is used in
We own,
in your
if you will.
superintendent's, or you guys own the intellectual property. It's not something that we as a board created. So I appreciate also. I
Thank you
forgot
for
about
the
that piece.
question.
And I wanted to
Any
share,
other
that's
survey
Leah,
questions?
just with that, just backing up your statement, that's one of the things that I asked about the questions, and it was, I think, being transparent and saying that that statement on the survey told community members that it will be shared with the board. And so on the outset of it, we didn't say that we would share with everyone, so I want to take that pretense away.
But I would ask, though, I mean, just for the pulse of the board group, the results, the numbers, do we all feel comfortable sharing
I think
those?
for me,
I mean,
yes,
I
yeah.
feel like we should.
Yeah.
Like that's, we ask the
Numbers,
community
yes.
to participate,
Absolutely.
and they should see the results.
I think that's important to share, and then they will in turn see their preferences reflected in the announcement of vacancy. They can
Absolutely,
listen to
yeah,
them.
great, okay, thank
And I
you.
think, however, too, you decide to post it, I think, making reference to those 15 characteristics as being some research-based characteristics in the superintendent field in and of itself. And so I
Yep.
think that that's key too. It's not just something you guys came up with.
We
It's
didn't
like,
make up those
it's a-
categories.
You want
This is
somebody who has
more-
all of these.
Right.
And so that's why
Right.
I think you need to, preface it by these are some research-based characteristics.
And there were a couple of, I think maybe one or two comments on the open comment section that said, we didn't like having to pick 5, that's ridiculous, or not, that I'd say that's ridiculous, sort of like, that was frustrating because we want someone who's strong, they should be looking for someone, and you should be looking for someone who's strong in all areas. And as I said, we are, and
know
you
that,
are. But at the same time, maybe District A really needs someone with strong financial expertise, they need to pass a referendum and build 5 new buildings. Someone over here has large achievement gaps or a culture or climate issue. So there are things that bubble to the top, but we are looking for someone who's strong in all areas. So now the announcement of vacancy.
I have one more question
Oh, please, I'm sorry.
about the survey. I know that this is a superintendent search and not a research project, right? But the open-ended responses, do they get coded in any way from a research standpoint? In other words, can they be classified in some way to glean themes? And is that a process that you do by default, or would that be an extra ask?
That would not, so it would not be, we do that for the focus group feedback as a matter of practice. And I love to do that, sort of have a little bit of training in that with my research, and I am happy to do that for you. At the very least, sometimes there are sort of clear themes that emerge. I did one recently, and sort of communication, increased communication from top leadership, clear communication, personable communication, being seen in there was theme. And there was not something that emerged like that. If there was, I would say it, I would let the board know. And so I have not come in here with those things coded. Sure. I would be happy to.
The question, that would be nice to have, but I guess the answer I'm hearing is you code responses for the focus groups. You don't, for anyone who knows the language of market research, this is a very specific thing. So I'm just asking if they code the responses. The answer is you do for focus group, but you do not for the open ends.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for the question. So a couple of things quickly about the announcement of vacancy is picture it as, sort of folded up where it would look like a little brochure, but it's not that way unless you folded it up. And 2, it's a bit more professional, a little sleeker once it actually comes from our publication department, IASB's publication department. Now, with that said, these go out electronically. However, you will receive some paper copies if you want to post some around the community or in your central office or in your buildings. So that's by way of opening. If you will hold it, if you have it flat, please turn it to the side that has your district logo there on the right. And that way I can just refer to column 1, 2, 3, 4. We can flip it over and do the same. So column 1 on this side and columns 1, 2, and 3 on the back side was from information that the district, that central office provided to us. When candidates receive this electronically, or they go to the IASA Job Bank, or they go to the IASB website, they know to look for this. And of course, they aren't just looking for a job, they're looking for a good fit for their skills, and they're looking for a good fit for their family and their life and their where they are in their career. So all of that information, there's the financial data, who is on the board, how long they've served on the board, and then that plethora of information on the back so they can get a little mini snapshot before they delve in and do, if they're going to apply, they will do extensive homework on the district, but this gives them a snapshot. About the district information, I will say if you see anything, sometimes there'll be the wrong number of years or something gets copied and pasted. If you see anything that looks erroneous, please let Shannon know, Shannon and Kevin know, and let us know. As soon as we get a green light, we will send this to publication and disseminate it widely. The sooner the better. We'd love to do that tomorrow or the next day. So back to nothing then really else to say about column 1. Column 2 on that side that says ideal candidate at the top. Prospective people who are applying will immediately go to this column and say, and this is where, right now where there are little dashes, they will be more formal bullets in the final copy. There are the top 8 responses of those 15. That's kind of self-explanatory. Then the part that's in yellow reflects the part that Mr. Mulby spoke to, and that is teaching experience, central office experience, superintendent experience, those kinds of things. Based on the responses to the survey, what we have put right now for your consideration to see if you have any other thoughts is previous successful teaching experience required, previous successful principal and district level administrative experience required. Notice previous superintendent experience, that was not a preponderance by any of the 4 groups that they felt that that was a requirement. So that is highlighted in yellow for your consideration, and sometimes boards are able to say that on this same evening, yes, anyone feel differently, or hey, we might need a little time to think about this. I think that probably this is okay for you, but don't want to make any assumptions. So I'll come back to that in just a moment. Please flip to the back side. The only other place that we would draw your attention to is also highlighted in yellow. There are essentially 2 ways to refer to the compensation. One is what you see there that's highlighted, to not list an amount, or not list a range, or not list a will not exceed. And some districts do that. More districts use this more generic language, and that is that the total compensation package will be regionally competitive and based on successful experience and education. And there is something that we'll be providing to you that will give you some regional data for your type of district, your size district, and your area in the state. So you will have some data to be thinking about, and when you have that conversation. It's never too early to start talking about the compensation question. I was going to say, as of like fall of 2019, it became illegal for us to ask a candidate, what do you currently make? And what did you make in your last job and the job before that? And it's also illegal for you to ask that. But we can provide that sort of regional data and for the type of district and size of district. The other option then is if you have discussed and know that you have a range or know that you have a ceiling, if you know that and you would like us to include that, you would just need to let us know that again sooner rather than later so we can get this published.
Can I ask a question about this
Please.
section? Is it also customary to not say the year, or if, like, it says multi-year?
Yes, it is customary to not say the year unless you know for certain, and sometimes boards have an idea but don't know for certain. They might be leaning toward a 3-year, but to get a phenomenal candidate, they're willing to go 4, or sometimes a board will say, we're really thinking a 2-year, and a candidate may say, I actually probably would not move my family respectfully for less than 3 years. So I will tell you that 3 years is common. 3 years is the standard. And if you had discussed and knew that, we could say it's anticipated it would be a 3-year. It might just be a little safer to say multi-year. That way they know, because occasionally someone will say, we want to give a 1-year. And that gives significant pause to a lot of excellent candidates. So by saying multi-year, they would know, okay. Thank you, great questions. The column 4, the last column on the right for the backs, what I'm calling the backside, is information for the candidates regarding the timeline. And as you know, applications close October 11th, and the October 25th board meeting, I believe, is when I'm scheduled to come back and bring that slate of candidates. And so information there. The 6 questions that you see, each candidate is required to provide a written response to that. So that's one of the things that we analyze both for content and for just actual clarity and accuracy in their writing. Anything you would add, Al?
And also with when we do screen the applications and read their responses to the questions, part of our thinking goes back to the ideal candidate characteristics. And if they are responding in that kind of a light, you know, if they know that these are the things that you as a district and as a board are looking for, and if they have expertise and skills in these areas, hopefully their writing will reflect that. And also then when it comes time to interview, if they happen to be amongst the group that you're interviewing, you're going to be hoping that they're going to be responding in the interview questions, same as what they've written and same as what you're expecting. So that's why we kind of try to mesh that when we do the screening of the applications themselves.
Well said. So what I would what we would ask you is the 2 places, three things, I guess. 1, please let me know, say, you can tell me by the end of tomorrow, by the end of Thursday, what would be the adequate amount of time for both central office folks to double check numbers and things, and anyone else to read through it and see if they have anything they would like to change. So I need to know when I'm going to hear back from you if there are any changes. Number 2, are you comfortable with the current compensation language as it is highlighted? And number 3, are you happy and comfortable with the required statement, the second one that's highlighted?
I have a question about that one, and I'm curious what your opinion is, just because we want to attract a large pool of qualified candidates. Does saying successful principal, like being that specific, would that turn anybody off from it? Like, because there are many pathways, I think, to be a district level administrator, or maybe you're like an assistant principal or some other building level administrator before being a district level administrator.
So the preponderance of applicants have principal or assistant principal, but you're right that occasionally it might be someone who was a psychologist or a social worker who then moved into a central office position. And so this would preclude that candidate if he or she was a psychologist or a social worker who then maybe moved into a student services director who then got their superintendents. So by saying principal experience is required could eliminate some people. I don't think it would eliminate very many, but it depends what's important to you.
But that includes assistant principal. Like, we don't need to explicitly spell that out. They'll know.
No,
okay.
we would take assistant principals. But it would, if somebody had not been a principal, they'd been, and sometimes they've not even taught. Sometimes it's someone who's been a psychologist or a social worker position I have tremendous respect for, and then moved into a central office position, but they have not taught or been a principal, and And so there's, some districts are okay with that, and sometimes districts say, no, it's really important to us and to our stakeholders that the person have teaching experience and principal experience, and that would seem to be the case here, which is why we worded it that way.
Would it be better to say like successful principal and or district level, so that they, if they didn't have that principal position, I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I think
that is, so to me, it reads that, oh, I've had to have both
Yeah,
experiences.
It does currently read that you have to have both. I don't know what you think about and or. I mean, we could.
We could do that
We could do that.
Yeah. Very few
I mean, you got, because you know, but it may not, if someone reads it, they may not, oh, they're not, I can't apply for this. So just to bring them to you. I
The
guess.
bulk of the applicants that we get are going to have followed that traditional path of teaching, and then maybe assistant principal, district level, possibly superintendent. That just tends to be the path that we follow in administration. However, there are, like Dr. Vineyard mentioned, there's some unique paths as well. So, and or could certainly, I mean, that would work.
I like the idea of and or.
Yeah, I'm
Because most are going to have
comfortable with
and if there's an or, they have one or the other, then we can screen them through the lens of what you're looking
Right, I
for.
agree. That would be
I
good.
like that. Okay.
So, on the same note, I read this as successful principal. I don't read it as successful principal or assistant principal, so that tying that out, or, saying principal and or assistant principal. And then from a
So
applicant,
building level.
side of things, I don't love the word required. And the reason why is because it's been proven time and time again that women will not apply for positions that they think they do not have 95% of the qualifications for, where men will. And to
I was
put.
just hearing that research last weekend.
Yeah, so to put the word required on here as opposed to preferred, or other words that just say that we have a little bit of freedom there or a little bit of balance there, I think immediately allows this application to be more friendly and more equitable. Not to say that I would like to have all of our applicants be women, but I would like to have an equitable balance of applicants. And so I think the required word doesn't lean towards that. And so and that is not to say disregarding the survey results. I think the survey results are really important, and that we may end up making that decision that that person has all of these qualifications. But I don't want it to stop a great applicant from applying because they don't have every single bullet point 100%. And women will stop applying when they don't have the bullet points 95% of the way.
I guess to play devil's advocate, Leah, but we are requiring it though, right? Like didn't we sort of agree that the person needs to have teaching experience? Yes. Building level administration.
If you've got somebody who has all of these things and is an outstanding candidate and they don't check all three of those boxes, are you going to say no? And they're better than, and they're a better candidate for us than another person who does check all the boxes?
Only thing is by adding the and or, they don't have to check all three boxes, they only need to check two.
It's the word required for me, that because it will.
Yeah, but I'm kind of, I agree with Jess on this. I mean, if it's a requirement, it's a requirement, right? And something is or is not a requirement. And
But what we signed on for.
I mean, we can talk here about whether it should or not be a requirement, but if it's a requirement, it shouldn't be worded any other way, I guess.
But have we said it's a requirement? We by doing this survey, we did not say that we are going to make these things an absolute requirement for this superintendent position. We said we want to get the information from the community so that we can make the best decision. That best decision may not be a person who is missing one of these, or that best decision may be a person who has not had the district level experience, or has jumped, has been that psychologist, or someone who's in those spots. That may be that best person. So are we saying that by doing the survey that these pieces are requirements of the job? Did we make that commitment, or did we say that we were searching for guidance?
I think we are saying that. This is So we kind of have the preferences listed in the bullet points. We're not saying those are requirements. I think this is why this is highlighted, because we took from, it's not just us saying it, it's what the community said, it's what stakeholders said. And for the most part, like we've gotten from the survey that all these stakeholders are saying these three things. And I think having that and/or, just so it doesn't take the opportunity away from someone that's done a lot of work in their career as a teacher, and then maybe in the district level office, or they may not have had that principal level, but they've had that high district level work. But I think these three things are asked from the community. So yes, it starts there, and then we kind of look at other aspects of a candidate from that. So I do think it's a hard stop to say requirement. I don't think it takes away or not include any population. These are the main areas where people work and come into this position, and I think that word for these three things, I think that's fine. I don't see it as taking an opportunity away.
One thing that we were just saying was that to add clarity to principal versus assistant, like it doesn't specifically say assistant principal, we could change principal to building leadership or building level leadership. That's a little more encompassing, so that wouldn't be off-putting to someone who has been an associate principal or an assistant principal. And yes, I absolutely hear what you're saying, and it's ultimately your decision and your search. We are facilitating it. Typically, this is one place, and the one place where it's either, if there's a not a consensus, preferred is the language, and typically, if there is a pretty solid consensus, it's required. But ultimately it's your decision. I mean, this was our recommendation based on the survey results, but the board needs to be comfortable with the wording.
I guess I'll ask comments to those from the board members with that statement, with the building level,
Leadership.
better words than I'm saying, building level leadership. How do you feel about changing that and changing that wording? And then in the next comment, how do you feel about preferred versus required? So that.
I'm good with,
Anyway.
I like the building leadership level, and/or, but I do want the required still in there.
I agree with Kevin.
Me too.
I don't think the required is going to exclude anyone. I like the and/or coming in. My issue with saying building leader is that's not how we phrased it when we got the information from the public, from the families, from everybody. So I wouldn't want to change that.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
On the survey, it says.
On the
She
survey,
is preferring to not change principal to building level leadership
Oh, got it.
because of how it was worded on the survey.
Got it. Yep.
I guess like typically, because this is the first time that I think all of us are doing this, is that what's used, principal? And people who are applying will know that that means assistant principal also,
Yes.
right?
Most likely, yes, because most principals probably have either been a dean or an assistant principal. So they'll know that, like I said before, that path is generally going to be the bulk of the applicants for this position anyway, but they
But I'm
would
saying,
know.
what if they skipped over principal, like it was assistant principal to district level? Like those people will know that like, I was an assistant
Well,
principal.
they will be part of the and/or.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, got it,
So
okay.
Yeah,
so
they'll be
I
included
think-
in that.
Okay.
I think the and/or was a
Yeah.
great idea. I really like that. I also would say yes, my vote on that. And I think whether it says principal or building level leadership is honestly a little bit immaterial to me. I think that people are going to pretty much interpret it the same way.
Sure.
So so if you have a
Yeah, I'm
comment.
the only one who, I don't think I'm the only one who hasn't weighed in, and I'm still debating the preferred versus required. Because I'm with you, I don't really, whether it says building level leadership or principal, I'm kind of, I like the and/or, I'm glad we're doing that. I mean, I do at the end of the day think these are things we're gonna require. I guess I'm debating, is it that both of them are required? If we found a great candidate who was a district leader that hadn't been a teacher, I don't know if that happens very often at all, but
Well,
are both
they can
required,
take-
or is
they
one
can take the
preferred and one
teaching piece
required?
off.
And I know we're beating this to death, but
Well, I guess, Laura, I think we go back to the survey, because I think that an overwhelming number of people really think that classroom teaching experience is important. I think the board results show that. That's my personal opinion too. I mean, I do think having stepped foot in the classroom as a teacher is very important.
Yeah, you're right, I look at the numbers, I like, for any of the questions, that wasn't overwhelming.
All right, I'm
If you look
sold.
at the
I'm good
yeses
with
versus
required.
nays.
Yeah, just one more
Yeah.
thing, I don't want to beat this up.
Yeah,
but
no, I'm done.
If we say,
Required's
if we
fine.
say preferred for all three of these things, we're basically saying we'll accept any candidate whether you've worked in a school or not.
Yeah, and I would not advocate
And I
for
wouldn't-
preferred
I
for all of
can't.
them.
I can't go down that road.
And I'm fine, required's fine. I think that's the reality. We're going to require these things, so we should advertise it that way.
And know that it's going to, I actually think that our administrative assistant is out of the office tomorrow. I'm not sure if
Yes.
she's gonna be able to get that to publication. So we have a little bit of time if you need to sleep on it and feel differently. I'm going to update it with the and/or, definitely. I'm not sure if I'm doing building level leadership. And I personally don't think that does a disservice, that it's different. I appreciate like how conscientious you folks are as a board to your constituents and your stakeholders, like very, very impressive. I think that building level leadership means principal or assistant principal.
Right.
I mean, I think they're pretty interchangeable, so I think it would not be twisting what the wording was in the, trying to make it something different than what the wording was in the survey. So,
I think as a
Yes, I
unit
think
district, we also have the luxury of a K or pre-K through 12 span of experiences, whether they be teaching or administrative. Often we work with districts that are just elementary or just high school districts, and
Right.
so
Yeah.
we try to narrow down those candidates to be people who have experiences in those settings. We've got a broad
That's true.
span of experience here, which I think is going to be good. I mean, it's going to bring in people who have been in a classroom, could have been in elementary, could have been middle school, could have been high school. Same way
and
with
even how social workers often will teach an SEL class or teach
Right.
SEL lessons in classrooms. So I think that a strong, I think we're going to capture the strong candidates
Absolutely.
and not have someone shy away from, not have someone shy away from applying based on this language. Obviously, previous superintendent experience is a deal breaker, and even if it says preferred, sometimes that might make someone think, oh, they probably wouldn't hire me, it says preferred. And so I like the language as it is, particularly with the and/or.
Right, I agree.
So you need us to commit to a day we're gonna get you feedback, right?
Yes.
Well, I want to ask the board to like not continue to beat that one, if that's kind of a straw poll to say, it seems that we can take each one down the road, but it seems like the majority of us are saying leave it as required, leave that word. We agree to have the and/or. And the biggest question I have, if you agree, is building level leadership, or I guess if you can say which one of those, because I wasn't clear. on the
Principal
majority.
versus building
Right.
level leadership.
So we leave the required, we have the and/or. What do we want to say? Principal, leave it at principal, change it to building level.
I'll go first. Building level leadership is more inclusive. It sounds better to me.
I agree.
Agree?
Yeah.
We're
I'm
gonna
good
change it
either
to
way,
the building
so,
level.
yeah.
And then,
Yeah, and your point that that includes principal, and it's not a manipulative twisting of words, so I appreciated that comment from you.
yes.
Because
And
Ann
then-
just commented, that gave me pause, so thank
Yeah.
you for
It
that.
did, yeah.
Yeah,
it
but
did,
yeah,
which is
with
why
the
conversation's
explanation, it
important.
sounds better than just,
Yeah.
we're directly changing it. So yes, the comment was greatly appreciated.
And then the second part of your question is, for everything else, a day to get back to you.
That's correct.
Shannon could help too with, by Thursday? Too late, or is that?
No, I think, Thursday noon maybe, or something like that, then,
We have a pretty quick turnaround in
We
terms
do.
of our
Once this is.
printing and graphics department to finalize the final copy and then get it posted on all of the links that we use for
Disseminated by
jobs. So
safety.
by Monday, my guess is by Monday, it'll be out there on all of the sites
Yep.
that we use.
possibly Friday, but Monday at the
Right.
latest, I would think.
Okay.
So then Shannon, what do you need to hear from us about this? Or is this just need
Basically
to be
by
vetted by
Thursday
the
noon.
admin?
Yeah, by Thursday noon, if we haven't had any
If
changes or.
if anyone
Yeah.
sees an error
Right.
or something unclear, to
Okay.
let Shannon know by Thursday noon. Thank you so much. So then, I wanted to tell you that 28 individuals have already started or are well into an application. And so, again, that speaks very highly of your district because the announcement of vacancy isn't even out yet. And typically, that's when that comes out, is when someone gets serious about applying. So wanted to let you know that 28 had started it.
And they're waiting for this to be done because then they can write more
Yeah.
directly to what we're looking for.
Right.
And so they know that people who are applying have been through this and they kind of know the process and they know that the brochure is being developed right now. And so as soon as it's there, they'll be able to finish their application and then hit submit. And they can change and resubmit anytime up until the 11th of October. So they may rethink some of their responses and, but then by the 11th of October, then it's, is that the date we said? Yeah,
Yes, it
That's
is.
when it'll close.
Yep, excellent. And then.
Very quick question.
Yes.
Do all candidates come through your process? So even if they are internal candidates, do they go through your process so that a full slate of candidates is presented to the board
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Yes, they do. Mhm. They are screened and approached exactly like anyone else. There are times when we will be instructed that we want all, or we want the internal candidates to be part of the slate. So, or just let the process play out as it is. Sometimes they'll say, although I say typically they would be anyway, but they might tell us we would love all the internal candidates to go through a screening interview. And so sometimes a board will have a direction for us. That's not something that will be happening until mid-October, so you can give that some thought and we can think about that. And at other times, boards will simply say, internal, external, treat everyone the same. We want just your unbiased screening of letting the, cream rise to the top.
The
What's
fact
the
that there's that
typical
many
number?
applications started already, that's a really good sign. So that as we move through the next month and a half, that number is, I feel very comfortable and confident about the pool we're gonna have.
Great.
What's the typical number for the slate when you present it?
Oh, the slate. So when the application window closes, we will separately analyze, really carefully analyze all of the applications. We'll do that individually, and then we will come together for a discussion, Mr. Mulvey and I, and we will narrow the whole pool down to 12 to 15. Could be more, could be less, depending on how many applicants there are, but I think there's going to be a nice, really nice, robust number. And for those, we will conduct a screening interview. And from there, we winnow it down to what we call the slate that is brought to you. And typically, that number is 6. That's sort of the average. And again, sometimes we may come back to you and say, we feel really strongly that would you do 7? Would you interview 7? There's just a great slate. And occasionally, there are some small districts, rural districts downstate or throughout the state that we may say, hey, we have a slate of 4 or 5. We could bring you 6, but honestly, if you want to know, we think your next superintendent is in this 4 or 5, but the average is 6. Okay, then, and then the last thing I wanted to say was to thank Shannon, the district leadership team, and the building leadership teams for all the work you've been doing, coordinating the focus groups. So we have those scheduled. I sent to you the invitation to play around with it just as you need to. And I know I'll be in the district next week, starting with those.
And there are 2 rounds for the focus group? Or 3?
3 total.
Okay, I thought I saw.
For the community?
Focus, yes.
For the community.
Well, 2 for the community and 1 with.
3 for the community, 2 for staff, and 1 for administrators.
Is there, on the community side, is there like do you max out on participants? Like, is there a point where it's like, we can't take any more people? Like, we can't?
We've never had that happen.
Never had that problem.
We like to break the rules.
I guess that it would be a little more on your end of whatever room you have set. If it just were overflowing and we can't accommodate, people need to be able to sit and turn and talk to someone. And so a larger number is fine.
Okay.
And so far, we've not had, but you're right, you're generating a lot of community engagement. So far, we've not had a group be unwieldy too large.
Okay, and then for the administration, can we get like yard signs for each, like big yard signs for like each of the schools so that parents can start to, not like the little ones. I like the little like congratulations to the high school, it's an amazing yard sign, I still have it up, but like bigger ones, like so that all the parents can see that the focus groups are coming up besides just our email.
Yeah, we can work on that. And we're also gonna work through the village as well to send out a communication about the focus groups.
Awesome. And I also want to thank you guys. I noticed one of them, especially Manning, is like on a night that there's an event going on.
Yes.
I think that's
I think
really
2 of them
smart
are
and
before
sharp.
open
Yeah.
houses, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
2 of them
thank you.
So
Yeah.
that was great.
I think
Great
those
plan.
signs for the survey around the district were great. I mean, that was a really, we don't usually see that.
No.
We don't see a survey promoted pretty much any other way than via email. And I think that having the signs around the district really were.
Got the message
That
out and
helped it, it
served you well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so.
Thank you for all you do for the community and not just the children. I am open, we are open to answering any other questions you might have. That's the last bit of information that we had, and as I said, I'll leave the open comment stapled packets with Shannon. Anything else we can help you with tonight?
Thank you.
We thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you so much.
So we'll move to number 2, presentation of monthly financial statements.
Yes, looking at previous month of June, or a couple previous months, the big takeaway on the revenue side was property taxes. So the district received a bulk of the property taxes in June. As presented in the last board meeting, we did have May early payment. So the rest of the first installment came in June. That's in line with our cash flow. Second highlight is federal taxes, being that this year we saw a decrease in federal taxes due to COVID. That was a huge difference from the prior year. So those were the 2 takeaways on the revenue side. On the expenditures, it's the end of the year purchases, so building level and construction and transportation, all those end of the year expenditures came in June. So we will also see on the next board meeting some stragglers come in July, but the bulk of expenditures match prior years, and that's just end of the fiscal year expenditures. So those are the quick highlights for revenues and expenditures.
Any questions or comments? All right, we'll move to number 3, update on the 2022-23 school year.
So we're back in session. We've had a few student attendance days and things have been going very smooth. The staff has been amazing. The energy in the buildings has really been great. And we're hitting our 6th day of enrollment, and that's typically then when we look at our current enrollment. So our next board meeting, I'll have enrollment figures for you compared to last year's enrollment. So we'll be able to take a look at those numbers. Transportation has been running fairly smoothly. There's always the initial hiccups as drivers are learning routes and students are learning processes and procedures. But overall, transportation has been running smoothly. The crossing guards are all in place, so there hasn't been any issues with that. So that's good to see. As far as COVID, currently we have 4 Manning students who are positive for COVID and 3 Miller students. And with our staff, we have 3 certified staff and 4 non-certified since the beginning of the year. So numbers aren't too alarming. And we are in the process of working our metrics. The metrics we'll be looking at this year as far as GLCs and for our strategic plan, and we'll be posting those at the end of the month.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, it's a junior high. What happened to we were supposed to have the portable air conditioners. What happened with that?
I don't know if Joe, you want to address that?
Joe, so nice
Hi,
to
Joe.
be here, Joe.
Welcome.
So, a little bit about the portable air conditioners. So we did get the pricing for them for the first month. My suggestion was to not do it because at the time there was a fear that we may not be able to do the project next summer. And if that was the case, we'd be setting a precedent of having to do this for multiple years. So that 20,000 could quickly turn into 60,000 just for portable air conditioning for this fall, the following spring, and then if we weren't able to do the units next year, the following fall. So I suggested not doing it just because at the time, with timing and supply chain issues still, it's still kind of up in the air next summer. It all depends on equipment availability. Right now, seemingly the longest thing is going to be pumps and chillers, which the chiller we could get away with not having for the start of school. The pumps we cannot. So again, like as soon as the process gets started and equipment gets ordered, then we have lead times of when this will actually show up. And then can the project go or can the project not go? So based on that, it's still kind of a question mark until everything is signed on the dotted line and the company is able to purchase the equipment. So until we get to that point, I confidently can't say that the project will happen next summer until we have some kind of concrete lead times on mandatory equipment. Again, like the chiller is a piece of equipment that we use for air conditioning. It's not something that we couldn't start the building not having. If we don't have a boiler, we don't have heat. So it depends on what the equipment is that we can't get. There's also some things that we could go outside of spec on. So basically, we would prefer this equipment. If we can't get this equipment and we can get that equipment, we can work around that. But certain aspects of the project, we have got to have the equipment to do it. So that's one of the biggest hurdles with the project. So that's kind of where it's at.
And I thought that there was also a concern around the electrical for having the portable units in every room,
Yes.
I thought we talked about that if the facilities committee, which everyone's invited to.
That was a concern. I mean, it is an older building, so with that comes a lot of added electricity throughout the years. That was a concern that we had if we did add portable air conditioning units, what that looks like on high energy days, what that does to the classroom if it's constantly, we have to reset the breaker to get everything back on. You know, rebooting laptops, like the teacher's doing a presentation, if it goes out, it's a constant hassle. That was something we also considered. For me, it was strictly a cost thing. I understand, I mean, this has been a long process without having air conditioning. This is a you know, it's a $7 million problem. So it's not something that you can take lightly. Like, it's a big project, there's a lot to it. We had to go out for financing, that took some time.
I think, because I know we probably have to reiterate, like, what questions we asked before, and we knew just the predicament we're in as a country in the world, supply, demand, and that. So I know we discussed that we knew this project couldn't get started this summer, like we would have liked, you know, if there's, you know, all things in consideration, we would like to have started this summer, but their equipment or supplies
And
that we
it's
can't
just
get.
like-
But that aside, I guess the question, and we did talk about this a little bit, what are we doing in the meantime? Like, it's hard to say, well, it is what it is.
Right.
What are we doing for the
So
schools, the
we've
teachers,
kept
the
the
students?
units, so we've dedicated 3 units that we're gonna keep maintaining. So that's the media center unit, the cafeteria unit, and the unit that does the main office. So kind of the layout of the school, the media center unit basically takes care of every hallway in the building. So that unit has a tremendous load on it. So if we can keep that unit operating as best as possible, it gives us the most cooling in the building. Some of the other ones are able to cool, but it depends on the outside temperature. If the outside temperature gets too high, it puts too much of a load on the unit, and the unit can't maintain it, so it shuts down. You know, there's numerous issues with all 16 different units, so.
Is that what we're using now, 16?
Well, currently we have 16 rooftop units, that each unit itself has its own cooling and its own heat. So that's 16 different units that would require troubleshooting, leak testing, part replacements, all for stuff that's gonna get tore off the roof and basically scrapped.
So we're using 3, and we have a few portable ones?
So we don't have any portable in the building. We do have, of the 16, we have about 6 that have cooling capacity in different areas of the building. Again, out of cost, I have not gone through the process of having the contractors out to diagnose what it is, because most of them are refrigerant issues. So we know that that's the problem. That's been the problem for the last 8 years. It's all been refrigerant issues. I gave the recommendation not to continue to spend money on it. And these units need to be replaced. This building needs to be updated with new equipment, and then, you know, and that's been the process. We've been doing that for the last 2 years. I mean, we had to go out for bonding, we had to design the project, we had to get budget numbers. Now we're to the point where we've done the open bid, we have the apparent low bidder, we need to take it to the next step, which is awarding them the contract to do it. Then that company will give us submittals as saying, this is the equipment we're going to use. We approve that, and then they can purchase it. And then that starts everything. So once the order is actually placed, then we get lead times, which.
So I think you were leading to it, but can you speak to, I don't know.
Sure.
What's happening in the industry? Do you see that supplies are coming in?
Honestly, being honest, it's a complete crapshoot. Like, there's so many different things that have gone on. Like, today we had a meeting with the architect and engineer. They were explaining door manufacturers. So it's gone down to basically 2 manufacturers, where all the business that was being taken care of by multiple manufacturers of doors has now gone to 2 companies. So the 2 companies are providing the doors for way more people than they can. So it leads to extreme lead times, not being able to get equipment. The same thing is going on with pumps, where a pump to move water in the building is a pretty standard piece of equipment, but everybody needs them. So you just have so many people ordering, so little coming in, and then it just creates a snowball effect.
So can I just interject really quickly? Because to me there's 2 issues. There's like the unknown of when exactly we'll be able to replace the system.
Yeah.
And then there's the in the meantime issue, and I think there are 3 options for that. One being do nothing, two being portable air conditioners, which I heard I think I heard you say is $20,000 per.
It's about
season.
22,000 for a month.
Okay,
rental.
22,000 for a month, that's option two.
Yeah.
Or spend the money on the refrigerant.
Yes.
And up-
So-
what would the cost be for that?
So those costs range anywhere from 9,000 to 15,000.
So that would,
So
be
that-
more cost effective than the portable ones.
Yes, but that has
Still
been the,
expensive.
that has been the plan to deal with air conditioning at the junior high for almost 10 years.
Did you
is-
say the refrigerant is hard to come by for
The refrigerant is outlawed, actually. It's R22 refrigerant. So currently, the only way you can get R22 refrigerant is if it's recycled or if somebody has it on stock, which does not exist anymore.
So that's not really an option then?
Yeah.
No.
Take that one off.
Well, it is an option, but that 9,000 is now probably closer to 18,000, just because, like, each unit uses about 80 pounds of refrigerant. That's about $1,200 for 80 pounds.
And outlawed because it's bad for the environment?
Yes, because when it leaks out of the unit and gets into the atmosphere, it's not good for the ozone. So that's kind of why they switched refrigerant. Now they're gonna switch it again. I mean, it's a constant kind of trying to figure out.
It's not a pleasant situation. I mean, I think we all.
No,
yeah,
I mean, and unfortunately, it's a
yeah.
very expensive problem.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, the duration of this, like, at the beginning, there was different options for replacement with something more similar to what we currently have with rooftops. But the rooftops that we have are also not really compatible with energy requirements because they're multi-zone units. So again, it's just like another energy standard that they've changed over the years to get away from that kind of equipment because of usage, energy usage.
Is there a middle ground between air conditioners, portable air conditioners, and nothing? Like, will fans help? I mean, I'm not, like, just.
It's kind of like, I mean, the problem, it's not so much the heat, it's the humidity. So once you get the humidity in the building, without mechanical cooling, there's no way to take it out. Fans can help. Unfortunately, opening doors and windows helps, but then it becomes a security issue. There's also, that brings in a lot of bees, believe it or not. Like, we've had bee problems at the junior high in the past. This time of year is high for bees, so there's been that aspect of it. But the problem is, once it's warm in there without cooling, it's not gonna cool down. You don't get much airflow, like with windows open, you don't get a ton of airflow, and what you do, it's not necessarily cooling. So, you know, it's just a really tough spot to be. And, you know, I get it. I go through the building, I know what it feels like. I imagine what a classroom of 25 middle schoolers is like, I completely understand. But really, the only solution is replacement, and until we get to that point, I don't know.
How far away are we from knowing that, yes, they'll be able to do it next summer, or?
So once we approve submittals and they place the order.
So
how far?
If we could just back up, right, and just because not everybody's been in all of the finance
Meetings
and facilities meetings, which
Sure.
are super fun to
Sure,
come
sure,
to, and the community everybody's invited.
Right.
So the school board approved starting this process, right? Approved the process to replace the air conditioners.
Yes.
And then we approved the bonds, the $6 million in bonds roughly. We saved up $2 million or so in there for this project over the last X number of years. So now we have the bonds, which happened just recently. So we've got the $5.7 million in the bank. And now we approved going out to bid, and we just got the bids back.
Yes.
And I believe we're scheduled to approve those bids next week. So then that contractor will be awarded the contract.
Yes.
So next week, end of August, roughly, right? That contractor awards the contract. They know that they're getting this. We sign on the dotted line. They place the orders.
Well, first we have to go to submittals. So once you all approve the project to go through for the agreed upon price, The company then puts their submittals in, as
Okay.
in, this is the equipment we're going to purchase for the job. Do you approve all of this equipment?
Okay,
Once we are at that point and we as in me, the architect, the engineer, go through their submittals with what they want to use, once we approve that, that gives them the green light to go ahead.
what's the expected timeline on that, or how long
I
does that
will-
quickly go through?
I would say if it gets approved next week, then it would take us less than a week to go through their submittal, and then,
And then they place the order, so like beginning of September.
yes.
And we find out if they can get that equipment.
Yeah, so then that's what I'm getting to, is when do we find out, like,
I mean, shortly
when
after
do we hear back,
September.
from like, end of September, we'll know, like, will we be able to
Yeah.
do this
They-
project next
I
summer?
was gonna say, they should have leeway times by the end
Well,
of September, right?
Yeah, they should have lead times roughly by the end of September. What those lead, like, the lead time unfortunately is not guaranteed.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, I've heard horror stories, so it's like, lead times could be 6 weeks, lead times could be 46 weeks. And it, like I said, it's a crapshoot on what the lead time is on. Like, certain things that are very obscure that you would think is an issue is not, and then certain things that you would think are not an issue are a huge issue. And
So-
then they don't even have a lead time to provide.
So just moving things along, and I know this is having, you know, students in the building. And so I'm not out of hearing complaints every day.
Yeah.
I think something that we need to consider, I know you give us your recommendation of what the board should do. But
Right.
I have to say, like, doing nothing, it's not. The reality is, we won't have a fix by next spring.
Right.
That's just a likely reality. We are looking to get things started. We're moving along as best we can as far as this long-term solution. But I think as a board, we have to come up with the middle ground, whatever that is. But we take your suggestion on what to do.
Yeah.
Do nothing and kind of sweat through it, literally, or the board has to consider the cost of, and weighing those costs and electricity costs of doing something in the middle with portable units. I think that's something we have to have on our agenda to speak about, to have something, an answer, at least by the spring. We won't necessarily get a solution for the end of the summer, but.
Well, just to kind of summarize, so the board and the district has done everything that they can with the major construction. By, you know, going out to bid, by doing the research, by issuing the bonds, all that stuff. So now the next part is board approval on the bid and accepting the bid.
Right.
After that it is up to the contractor on the supply chain. And yes, it is a waiting time.
Right.
You know, I think it's a huge concern on the students and the education in the classroom. So I think going forward in the next couple weeks, Joe and I can gather kind of those three options and get pricing and see what's fiscally responsible for the district and just get more data on those options
To
and
make a
present
decision
that.
for the
Correct.
meantime. That's
Exactly.
I think that's the biggest question. What do we do in the meantime?
Right, like, right.
So maybe in the September board meeting, if that's okay with the Board of Education, we can kind of brainstorm and present, here are the options, here's the cost analysis of all options that we can do in the meantime before construction. Does that work for the board?
The only other thing I would add to that is, like, anything for this spring, by the time that they're out, and if we did have them come through and check the units and troubleshoot and see what they can get on, by the time that they get out, they go through them, they order parts, they charge, leak test, we're already into fall. You know what I mean? Like, we've kind of already missed this window.
Yeah.
If we're talking about spring, I think that's definitely a doable situation. It also could be something that we have them out now, they go through it and diagnose, and then we do the repairs for the spring. Like, you know, that's another option I would suggest. The portable units, now, keep in mind, some of the units, some of the sizes of the classrooms at the junior high are big. The portable unit is still undersized for the room, so again, you could spend the money to get them, but you don't have any kind of cooling guarantee what you're actually gonna cool the room you know, how comfortable it will be with 20 kids, a teacher, electronics, you know, with a smaller unit. It would be better than what it is now. I mean, that's obvious, but I don't know how cool it would really get.
Just looking for things
something.
like we are
Right.
in this climate, so
Right.
it's not gonna be much longer than
Right.
we had
Yeah.
heat, but
Yeah.
it's gonna be an issue again.
Yeah, come springtime, yeah, for sure.
How much does it cost to bring them out to diagnose issues, repairs?
An 8-hour day for a pipe fitter is close to $1,200, $1,300.
Okay.
On top of parts, on top of, they can't do it all in a day. I mean, in the past, and I'll be honest, I've only done this one summer because the cost associated with that one summer, I suggested not doing this again, just because you're putting money into the units that leaks out into the ozone. I mean, that's the honest to God truth about it. But that's basically what's been done summer to summer to summer, is that they come out, they diagnose all 16 units, they charge what they need to charge, replace what they need to replace, and then get through the year till fall. And then in some cases, it would be again in the spring, have them all back out, get what they can get running, and then summertime. So when I got here and looked back the previous 5 to 7 years and saw the pattern, I said, these need to be replaced. And it's a huge cost, but it needs to be replaced instead of constantly getting them running, spending all the money to, you know, have comfort for that time, and then you're into winter. So I take full responsibility for that. I mean, that was just, when I got here, that's what I saw, and my suggestion was stop doing this and fix the problem, essentially.
Which we are starting, we just have to get there.
Yeah, which I mean, it's been, like I said, this has been a 2.5, like, since I've been here, I've been working on this exact project, like getting this replaced and kind of getting it past the district. You know, Steve's explained many times these have been a problem since they've been installed, so it's one of those things you just have to rip the Band-Aid off and, you know, go beyond it, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to hear, I'm not sure what we'll hear that's very different from what
Right.
we've
I
heard.
guess it's-
And
that's
just in the
what's-
interest of people's time and effort, I guess
Yeah.
I struggle a little bit, but maybe with a little more time, there's a new solution out there somewhere that's gonna
Or
just
it,
magically
it may
appear.
be the same one more year, you know, one more time that we put the Band-Aid on, knowing that the big
Right.
solution is coming, but.
Yeah, knowing that we now have a replacement
Right.
in the
Yeah.
works, you know, it would make sense for it. When we did talk to the contractor after the bid opening, we did have a meeting with them to just get kind of their feeling on they were only concerned with the chiller. Now, again, that could change any different direction between now and Thanksgiving, but right now, the chiller is their biggest delay, at least. So again, like, all the contractors reach out to all the suppliers prior to the bid to say, hey, what does it look like? What's going on? Right now, that was their only concern, was the chiller. So again, that's not something that we have to start the school year. If it's a different piece of equipment, then we have to have a big conversation, depending on what it is. But there is potential for that, so, you know.
Any other comments, questions? See you in a
Thank
little
you.
bit.
Yeah.
Don't
Thank
go
you.
far.
Can either stay standing or.
We're gonna move to number 4, emergency days.
Yes, the board asked for this to be on the agenda because last year, the board went through the process so that the district can use e-learning days in lieu of emergency days. And with the caveat that, you know, typically we build in 5 emergency days. The board wasn't comfortable having 5 e-learning days, so we're not committed to any specific number. And what we agreed to was the first time, hopefully we don't need them this year, but in the event that we have to have an emergency day, we would use an e-learning day and then get stakeholder input about how it went, the process, what people thought about it, bring that information to the board, And then ultimately, the board then would decide their comfort level with additional e-learning days. So we do have the e-learning process in place for this year. When we get closer to that time of year when we're more likely to have an emergency day, we'll be communicating that to the families. And then, once again, there will be a process to collect that information for the board.
So if it's a multi-day emergency, just, 2 snow days or whatever it may be, we'll do one day as an e-learning day, and the next day will be
Emergency day,
middle
or,
school day.
right.
Which will get tacked on to the end of the year, so that we can gather that feedback from our stakeholders before we decide if we're gonna do it for all emergency
Right,
days.
correct.
And we may or may not do multiple e-learning days this year, depending on when that first day hits.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Leah.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? We'll invite you back for a.
Got you back, Joe.
Full conversation. Just kind of as a reminder, we did have a meeting at the high school, and the board toured the high school, but primarily the pool. It's been a discussion. And the board did ask for some additional information with regards to the cost of maintaining our pool, and then I think some idea of what some of the long-term solutions would cost. So, Joe?
Yeah. So basically, the background information, the pool has been in operation since the building was built. It's a 300,000 gallons or so. Right now, we have one rental group using it on top of our swimming class. Most of the pool infrastructure is original, but some things have been upgraded along the way. The way I kind of went about this was finding out an electricity cost, like running the pool for a year, the equipment associated with doing that, what does it cost annually? So the way we did that was we went through all the equipment in the pool, the exhaust fans, the boiler, the pumps, all of that, and me and ComEd worked on that. And then we also used the meter. So ComEd is able to monitor each meter in the building. So we identified which meters were attached to the pool, and then they were able to track like a, annual amount of what that is. So basically the electrical usage is about $22,000 a year, $22,800 per year. That could be slightly higher, slightly lower, depending on how many times the pool had been down that year, or a couple other different factors. The last year's repair total was $19,268, which was higher than typical. We had a lot of electrical issues. We also had piping issues, and it was just a rough year. I mean, in years prior, it had not been 19. It was closer to 11. The supplies is typically right around that area, 4,000 to 6,000. Last year it was 4,822. So total with those three avenues is $46,890. So that's an annual cost of just operating the pool. Then I also attached a survey of the pool that was done in 2007. So this was, at the time, the district was kind of going through the same scenario, looking at options for the pool and trying to figure out kind of an avenue to go down. At the time, these were the recommendations of upgrades or things to consider. Some of these things, some of these things are still issues. Some of these things are not as much of an issue as they were then, because they've been, things have been upgraded or replaced. But most of these are still issues today, just with the main infrastructure of the pool. A lot of that is still original. So it's, reaching the end of its life expectancy. The options for the pool is modifying, replacing certain things with the pool to keep it as a pool. Obviously, you could change the space. The other option I would say is just closing it in the meantime until funding comes in, more conversations are had, and just getting out of the pool business. That's kind of all I had together for the annual cost of it. The one thing I will say about the pool, To be honest, I was expecting that number to be higher for electricity. If I'm being honest, I thought it was gonna be higher. My problem with the pool is just the liability of it. I think at times it's a safety issue. At times it keeps me up at night, as does our 2 custodians that maintain the pool. It is a concern of everybody, just working on the pool. We've had contractors that don't want to do certain things in the pool just because the electricity is an issue, and it becomes you're here to fix this, and then it turns into fixing that and replacing that. So again, it's like nothing is ever cut and dry with the pool. It's always a process. When it goes down, getting it back up is always something. It's always like it's multiple systems for the pool that have to operate together. And when one of them is not, it kind of throws everything off. So then, it's just multiple steps to go through, fix, and,
What is the rental, what's the rental income from the one group?
that I'm not sure of. We have one rental group. It's Swim with Brian. He's been there since the opening of the pool. He's been our only renter. Our second renter left to go to the new natatorium, and then there's been nobody else.
But he's probably not paying us $50,000 a year to rent the pool.
I would guess that.
But we could definitely get that cost for you.
Okay.
And we can look back at historically as well, the vendors and the rentals and how much that costs, and just look, going back historically for you.
That would be a helpful number. The other number that I don't see here that we had talked about is the cost to shut down the pool, because my understanding is that's actually a pretty expensive.
So it depends. So initially we got cost estimates from Hinsdale when they did something similar. Their cost included a lot more than just turning it off.
Okay.
So their cost was also like updating lighting, doing some HVAC stuff. They did some stuff with the deck as opposed to like just filling it with gravel and then doing the final, like they did that up front. So their cost was much higher than what we would need to do to just turn it off.
So could we get that number too? I just feel like we're at this point where it's like, again, we want to kind of move on
So
this
like that would,
at some point.
so that would require like getting some quotes from contractors, but basically what we're looking at is creating an opening to get equipment in there to fill it with gravel. So like we would do it with 4-inch gravel or so, and basically just get enough in there to keep the vessel down so that it does not heave up with ground pressure. And then we would also be looking at renting a fence. So I would ballpark all of that at anywhere from 20 to 60,000, depending on unforeseen things. And but the biggest thing is just creating an opening in one of the doorways where we can now get equipment in there to fill it. That aspect, I don't want to say we could do it in-house, but to some degree we could do it in-house with equipment, just filling it with the gravel. I mean, that aspect could be done in-house, but it's a big deal. I mean, closing it's a big deal.
I'm a big fan of options. So we've got 3 options, I think. So it's option 1 is like the filling it with gravel, which is 20 to 60. Option 2, maintaining, which is it's a one-time cost of 20 to 60 though, right? Versus
to just
annually
basically to turn the lights off,
Okay.
around that. To do any kind of renovation in that, like the total of what they recommended on a low end. Now that, again, this isn't 2007. Keep in mind. So the low end was 672,000. The high end was 766,000.
That's gotta be close to a million.
Well,
too,
as a
no?
standard in construction, they use like 5 to 7% a year for cost to go up. So that cost could be upwards of 2 million now. That's to renovate the pool to maintain it as a pool.
You said 2 billion?
Million.
God, I was like, wait, what?
No. With an M, sorry.
2
The other option would be creating a new space, which would be like an auxiliary gym, something of that nature. A cost for that, we would need to do a study with Steve, the architect, and really go through it on that level, where he's able to put together, this is what a renovation is, this is what a renovation of this pool is, and this is estimated at what it would cost. If it was converted to an auxiliary gym, this is roughly what it would cost. All that could be done with Steve through a formal survey, similar to what was done in 2007, where a contracting company can come in, analyze the pool, say, again, like, if you wanted to keep this, this is what you need to replace. If you want to do this, Steve would have the answers to that, basically.
So, Anthony, $2 million, like, is that even in our realm of possibility?
I think this conversation for this year shouldn't be, discussed on if it's gonna happen this year. I mean, with a tentative budget, we're in a deficit of $2 million with the tentative budget. We have an agenda item tonight that's almost $500,000. This year, I think the conversation's long-term. I think if we get the data points and talk to the architect and reach out to other high schools and districts that have done this, I think we can have more in-depth conversations throughout the year and then project going forward. But definitely this year we cannot. But I do agree that this should have a bigger conversation because it's going to involve a lot of stakeholders. It's going to involve the community. It's going to involve principals, teachers. So I think, again, having the data, having conversations at committee meetings, having information at board meetings throughout this year and potentially next year, I think we can project and brainstorm a better idea, but definitely not this year.
Yeah, and I think that's really mainly what we were looking for, is just to keep things moving. And I think this was a good conversation about what some of those data points are and some more information we could gather. But yes, the sense of urgency is definitely not like, we've got to figure this out.
Yeah, and I think, Joe and I and the architect, and I think we're on the same page of just constant communication and just making sure that we have our ducks in a row and actually get the ball rolling for, going forward.
I would say the next
Wait,
step.
hold on.
Okay,
Laura?
sorry.
Can I just have a comment? I mean, I feel like one of the things we need to determine, and maybe it is the process you're talking about, that is sort of multi-stakeholder, but really the big picture is, what do we want to use that space for? Do we want to have a pool? And if the answer to that is yes, then we know a path forward. Or do we want to use that space for something else? And what's that plan for that space? And if the answer is something else, then, then we can start to green light, like, okay, shut it off this year, and then we'll figure out what the next steps are from there. But I don't even know, I think we have to figure out how we start that conversation of what do we want to do, probably starting with, do we want a pool moving forward as a part of our facilities, as a part of our makeup? And then if not, what else could we use that space for that we want to maybe pursue? I mean, that just seems like where I would start with it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it goes back to the whole involving stakeholders, involving the principal at the high school. It's involving that rental. It's involving the community because it's the pool, So I do think, starting there and just getting feelers out and getting an idea of, possibly a survey and just get information on what are your thoughts about this pool, and involving administration, involving community, and just get a sense of, do you want to keep it? Do you not want to keep it? In relation to, in addition to the options on figuring out, okay, this is option 1 if we just maintain it. Option 2 if we just fill it, and option 3 is just renovating the entire thing for an optional or a different gym or all that. So I think we can definitely get the ball rolling this year for sure and involve many stakeholders.
And I think adding that piece is so important, because do we want to have a pool? It's like, yes. Can we have a pool, though? I think is a really important question that we need to get
Definitely.
to.
So I think even with,
just
go for it. Like you said, it's stakeholders. I think it's a lot. That's something, that our school has or Westmont has, but, does the community want it? Does the community even know? I didn't know for a long time, as a community member, that was an option. So I don't know, I would want to see that too in the long term. like how else it could be used, how we can involve Westmont, the village, how can we involve Park District, because those are options too, that we are, we're getting, I guess, some return on the cost in maintaining, if that's an option. It may not. Most stakeholders may say no.
Yeah,
We have an auditorium, I don't know, so.
And we just issued, $5.7 million of bonds. So the district is, we're at a limit of issuing bonds at the moment. So, we can do so much with the fund balance. We can do so much with the bond proceeds that we are doing the HVAC system. So it's projection as well.
Yeah.
Yes and no question on the pool. Do we want it? Do we not? And looking at the options. But the third part is long-term.
Yeah.
Projections. Where is the district going to be in 5-10 years if we do this? And down 10 years, do we have to go out for a referendum? What are the options down there based on projection, based on community feedback, and based on the options?
There's something staring at me in the face here, and I gotta say it. So, and I want to say that I was a swimmer all my life, and I kind of have a dream of seeing my son swim in that pool. But when I look at $46,000 a year to keep that thing open, and $46,000 a year, I'm paraphrasing you, so $46,000 to close it, closing that pool today pays for itself in less than a year. And I hate saying it, because I hate saying it, but it's staring me right in the face, and I think it'd be irresponsible not to say it. And I don't know what filling it with gravel, what it keeps us from being able to do with that space in the future.
Nothing, actually.
So if we're talking, I'm almost choking up even saying it, because I can't believe that I'm saying get rid of the pool. But what I'm saying is, if it doesn't stop us from doing something 5 years from now, and we can't do anything sooner than 5 years from now,
Let's save the money.
then why don't we save the money now?
Yeah.
So I guess
I'm in that pool and I agree with you.
Well, and so I'm very passionate about swimming myself. I will admit it, but not at the expense of our district, obviously. But I guess I heard it a little bit differently. I heard that closing the pool for this year, i.e., filling it with gravel, costs us $40,000 to $60,000.
Yeah.
You think?
Yes.
But that's not really closing the pool. That's closing the pool for now, and then we have a hole in the ground filled with gravel for God knows how long.
Yeah.
And we still don't know what we're gonna do with that space. So if we decided we wanted a pool 3 years from now, then we have to
get rid of the gravel.
Pay someone to open up the space again and move out the gravel. So I feel like we could still take this year to figure it out, and then we would have a decision that wouldn't force us in 2 years, if we want a pool, to go back in and
Right, that's what I'm saying. What does it
reopen
keep
up
us
the
from being in?
wall.
Right.
So I'm just devil's advocating a little bit that we can give ourselves 6 months to figure this out, but
Maybe
probably
there's
not
a little
more
more
than
sense
that.
of urgency than we initially.
Yeah.
So I'd be remiss, right? So first off, understanding the cost per year is very helpful. Knowing that it costs us 50 grand, okay, roughly a year, is incredibly helpful because I'm able to put that into perspective. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that we have heard from stakeholders and administrators about what, from a facility standpoint, our community would like. And that's one grade level center. And that costs way more than a pool. And so this is a piece of and I am a swimmer. I walked into the pool and I was like, oh, it smells like chlorine. It's wonderful. That's my happy place, okay? And it feels very defeatist to fill it up with rock.
Yeah.
I apparently have an in-ground pool in my backyard that I can't see that's filled up with rock that I would love to dig out myself. But it feels very defeatist. But if we talk about things on a one-off basis and we do not have a longer idea and plan for the district, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot. If we look at the pool in a silo and try to make that decision in a silo, then we don't know what we're cutting ourselves off from or setting ourselves up for in the future. And this is some of the work that can be done in committees and should be done in committees, which I'd like to. I think this is like my third time bringing in the committees for all stakeholders. We'd love to see you there. But a thing that the facilities and the finance committee can continue doing and working on is thinking through, now that we have gotten to the most expensive job in the district, which is that air conditioner thing, right? Now that we've approved it, now we've kicked it off, now we're doing that. Now what is our 10-year plan for the facilities in this district? And understanding like, okay, if we leave the pool open for 10 years, this is roughly how much it costs. But if we close it down, what does that free up, right? So we don't have a larger facilities plan. And if that larger facilities plan is to build a grade level center building, that is probably going to have a different outcome on our conversation around the pool, you know? And if that isn't, again, it's going to have a larger outcome on that conversation. We can do nothing about roofs. Roofs have to be replaced. We can't leak any longer. Roofs have to be replaced. Boilers need to be fixed. Air conditioners have to be fixed. These are all safety and security. Doors need to be solved. Windows, right? That's all safety, security. We don't have any choice on making those repairs. But we do have a choice on our direction for the district, and that's some work that we need to do. And this is part of that beginning, right? Yeah. But we need to do that work before we can make this decision. I kind of think the same thing, Carlos, right? Like, it hurts me inside, but fill it up with rock until we can figure out what to deal with it. Maybe. I don't think we need to make that tonight, but maybe in the next 6 months. But my point being, we have a strategic plan for our students. We have a portrait of a graduate. What is our strategic plan for our facilities? Because we all know that there is more work than just that air conditioner and some roofing projects and some parking lot projects. We know that there's a ton of work coming up at Manning. We know that there's a TIF district. We don't know what all of that's, but we need to make those plans first, or at least be on a trajectory before we make potentially a multi-million-dollar call on the pool.
And we have made priorities. And so we have to remember those. But also, I think that's really important. It's a strategic plan for
the community
our
was really clear when we did the surveys, when we were talking about grade level centers, and the administration and the staff. It was unanimous that the ideal was one building for our kids. It was unanimous across the board, and unfortunately, that is not in our ability right now. You know, but that we can't forget about that because that was a stakeholder assessment.
The one thing that recently came up in conversation I had with Rainey, actually, was she mentioned the pool is specific to the use. Like, if it was an auxiliary gym, everybody would have a need for the auxiliary gym. The pool is such a specific area, I mean, where it serves a swimming team, it serves the sports teams that sometimes use it for practice, but like an auxiliary gym is something that all the sports teams at the building could use.
Classrooms can use it.
It was something I didn't think of until she said it, and then I thought, well, you're right. I mean, you're right. Like, you would get much more use for the district as that than a pool. But I mean, it's a huge conversation, as is the grade level centers. I mean, all that. There's so many moving parts to the whole thing, but it does, like, I would say with this, the next step would be a formal survey where we would get Steve involved. Steve can go through it, give accurate suggestions with costs, work with similar to what we did with the junior high HVAC, where we went through it with a estimating company to say, what would this cost to do this? And then that kind of brings you to the next aspect of the conversation, you know, but.
Sorry, when you say what would this cost to do this, what are you?
Well, which option? Like, what would it cost to renovate the pool as a pool? What would it cost to renovate the pool as an auxiliary gym?
Okay, and what would it cost to
just simply close
it?
Yeah, like that could be a third option. But again, like the two big options that would be cost prohibitive are renovating it as a pool or renovating it as an auxiliary gym.
I mean, I do think that makes sense because I feel like, again, like decision number one, so we can, you know, as Carlos is saying, stop basically flushing $45,000 a year down the pool, is
Drain
to
the pool.
decide, do we want a pool? Like, that's the first, and if there's a better option that we want to consider, then we do, let's fill the
Yeah.
bad boy up with rocks and move on, but I don't want us to do that if in 6 months we're gonna say, boy, we really actually wanted a pool. Darn it.
So I think maybe in the Finance and Facility Committee, what we could do is draw up steps and procedures of an action plan. On step one, this is what we're gonna do. Step two, here's the options that we're gonna propose to the board and community. Step three is the survey and working with the architect on getting a capital projects plan in place. So we can brainstorm kind of a step-by-step procedure through this whole discussion, because I think, you know, our big concern is just putting Band-Aids on and fix it down the road. And, you know, I think the community, the board and administration, we're trying to avoid that as much as possible. So I think if we get our ducks in a row and brainstorm at the committee level and present it to the Board of Education at a later board meeting, I think that will have a bigger conversation and open the door wider for this topic.
That's great. I love good action plan. Thanks for that.
With options, you like.
And
Options, action plans.
Actions plan with options.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you,
or-
Joe.
You're welcome.
It's a rough night.
Your two favorite rooms, the roof
And the
Roof
pool.
and the pool.
Okay, we'll keep moving. Number 6, mandated units of study. Yay.
So last week, I shared with the board that, you know, the national sex education standards has been a hot topic for school districts, that our district is continuing to do what we've always done in the past. And so the question came up, could the board kind of have an idea of what those mandated units that we're currently covering look like? And so then Nadine put together the information that is in board docs.
To completely change gears.
Right.
Yeah, right.
It's all good hot button topics for this evening. I like it.
Hopefully this won't be, what I have to say won't be too controversial. So, members of the board, Mr. Carey, I've been asked to present what we're doing currently for our health education, safety and sexual health education program, and so we're going to focus currently on our mandates, because as Mr. Carey expressed in a couple of meetings ago, that we are responsible to fulfill the legislation for our mandates, and then summary of planned instruction for 22-23, which is kind of goes along with that, and then taking questions from the board. So this won't be too long, hopefully. So the first mandate that we are responsible for is to teach what we call Aaron's Law, and that's been in place for many years. And Aaron's Law is really about sex abuse and keeping your body safe and those types of things. I wrote these 2 bullet points, the age-appropriate and evidence-informed curriculum, that is very explicit in the legislation, that the content that we're teaching kids is in the language and the format and the curriculum that they can understand, even though the content is similar throughout pre-K through 12. It's done in a way that is sensitive to the age of the child. And also to be explicit about grooming behaviors, because that's kind of been added recently, because that is in the forefront of what we're doing, is trying to keep give children language, or give young adults language to protect themselves. So a few more details about Aaron's Law. It's been around since 2011. The lessons are taught by a social worker, so it's done outside of the typical classroom. So the social worker comes in to teach the lessons, typically once a year. Sometimes it takes more than one lesson. The presentations, or the sample presentations, were attached to board docs, so you can kind of see the nature of those presentations. And once again, when you kind of look at the slides, you don't see the whole story. You don't see every detail of how that lesson is conducted, but at least gives you a sense of what the topics are and how that presentation varies from the little kids up to high school.
The focus on the presentation really in the lower grades is keeping our bodies safe, you know, how to get help if you feel uncomfortable, you know, what's appropriate for touch and what's not appropriate. We teach our little ones that we hug our family members, but we don't hug our friends. So to make sure that kids have the language to advocate for themselves if they feel uncomfortable, or no, don't do that. And then the content becomes more and more complex and more essential as the students get older. So being explicit to define sexual abuse and grooming and sexual violence, and to help students understand what language to use to keep themselves safe. And so this is comprehensive in terms of how we address these topics, but it really is focusing on giving kids the language for consent. Parents are informed in advance of these lessons so that they have an option to opt out. I will say that rarely happens, though. The next set of mandates is to teach a comprehensive health education program. The health standards are about 70 pages long. So the health mandates are all inclusive, but what you're wanting me to focus on is the sexual health education and how we address sex ed. So that's what I'm focused on. So the health mandates, we are required to teach some form of human growth and development. We address family life. We address prevention and transmissions of STI. We address sexual abuse and assault awareness. Now those three topics are addressed in the health classes of the junior high students, the high school students, and in when students go out to another location to talk about human growth, which I'll get into more details. So I have a little asterisk there indicating that when those lessons are taught, parents are notified of the timing and the content, and they can opt out. Now, those, not to say we are required to teach health for K through 12, those topics are obviously not appropriate for the real littles, but there is a requirement to teach health for younger children as well. So this is regardless of the sex education standards, we are mandated to teach this content regardless of what the new standards. Currently for sex education, we don't have a structured program for early elementary outside of what we talk about for Aaron's Law. For grades 8 and 9, there are specific units that are part of the health class, and that the curriculum map for junior high health and the outline for high school health was included in your packet, so you can kind of see details. We send kids to Candor Health Education, which used to be called Robert Crown, and right now the list here is what we expect to provide for our students this year. So there's a kind of a class called Puberty 1, and addresses understanding changes in the body. That will be given to kids in 4th and 5th grade. Next year, the 5th graders will take Puberty 2, so to kind of go up in a continuum. The 6th and 7th graders are going to take Puberty 2. The reason why the 7th graders are taking Puberty 2 rather than the next class up is because during COVID they didn't get a chance to go, so they missed it. They missed some content there. And then grade 8 is a class called Teen Sex Health, which addresses the influence of social media and the impact of the internet and those types of topics. The information that is specific to those courses is available on the Candor Health Education website. It is really explicit, very informative. It provides lots of information for parents, teachers, and students. And if you are interested to see the alignment between those courses and the new standards, that's available on that link. So they actually have laid out the new standards and what the content is. And it's important to know that the content they're teaching is the same as it's been for decades. I mean, they've made it a little bit more contemporary, obviously, addressing the internet and the social media, but the language that they use and the terminology and describing the experiences that children have to be careful of and are worried about risks, that content has not changed. So it's the same as my own kids were taught.
I just have sorry. I
Oh,
think it's
yeah,
questions
no, it's
next.
fine. You can, questions are next.
These are all
What do
just
you got?
clarification questions,
Yes.
because I don't want there to be any misunderstandings. So on the first, the slide that talks about Aaron's Law.
Yes.
And it says age-appropriate, evidence-informed. Is that the same as research-based?
Evidence-informed is where, is a term like research-based, like that's a teacher term. Research-based, evidence-informed is pedagogy, is teaching strategies that are known to have influence or impact where a child will actually learn the content.
Okay, and I don't know if you can answer this question, but I feel like, from my understanding, like evidence-informed, and all of this stuff it is research-based.
Yes.
Curriculum. And am I correct in understanding the research indicates that actually educating students about this reduces their risk of being sexually abused or engaging in sexual activity? Is that?
That is 100% true.
Okay.
In fact, if you would like me to, I have some research that is available that I kind of collected, I have it like in my stuff. That is the research behind the new standards that shows that teaching kids about this explicitly prevents or cuts down teen pregnancy, the presence of STIs and sexual abuse. I don't have the exact figures. Anecdotally, I spoke to the folks from Candor, and she said that even within our own state, for example, a metropolitan area, not Chicago, contacted Candor because their teen pregnancy became so prevalent. And so once this program was implemented for several years, their teen pregnancy was cut in half. So it's an anecdotal study, but the research that I can show you is, one of the research pieces was 30 years of research about this topic, and all of those it's like a meta-analysis of all the research of 30 years, and that's why this is so important, because the presence of this teaching helps our kids have the language to advocate for themselves, to understand consent, the concept of consent, and to have the language to understand the risks involved. So whatever type of sexual activity that students engage in, they will understand that all of those types have risks. And that's really the focus that's what Candor's mission statement is. Not to teach kids how to do things, but to give kids the language to keep themselves safe.
Thank you for that. I think it could, I know everybody has access to these slides, but we've talked before about some info like on the website, and I think linking to some of that research could be really helpful, just in the, for the sake of transparency.
I wonder if, I want to do that after I talk to you, but I wonder if linking to the research that was used as a justification for the new standards would that be
I don't know if that would be
controversial or-
helpful. That, I was just gonna say, it could because we can have a bunch of people challenge it with a bunch of other research
Right.
as it is.
Sure.
I think linking to Candor Health,
Yeah.
and since we use them and what they provide would be
Right.
excellent.
Well, yeah, that and, because we do use Candor Health and they have a lot of resources for parents. So even parents who are of younger children can start to understand the language and what to expect with regard to what their kids need to be ready for. The research is a little tricky.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of Candor
Yeah, the
Health. I
Candor-
think that's great.
Now,
And I
Candor
think
has a
you
lot
have
of.
it in the presentation, right, to click through. You
Yeah,
can click through
I
to
think
Candor
the
Health.
idea of, I haven't done it yet because I wanted to do this first, but I think having like a little page off of the curriculum page with some reference to the curriculum map from the junior high health and the outline that we got from Craig Etheridge from the high school would be useful. And then obviously the Candor. And the Candor has a lot of resources for parents, not just explanations of the classes, but they've got resources that will help parents have conversations about the internet and social media.
Awesome.
Mental health, stress, those kinds of
The only other question, because I don't want it to be misconstrued, on the sex ed program where it says grades K through 3, no structured sex education outside of Aaron's Law, that doesn't mean there is unstructured sex education happening, right? Okay.
Doesn't mean we have, you're right.
I just-
Probably not a good
No,
phrase
no,
to
it's
use.
fine. I just don't want there to be
have lessons or
misunderstandings.
options.
It's like Aaron's Law and then the reading, the writing, all of those things.
Aaron's Law and whatever else you do. No, that's a good point. Probably need to rephrase it. So it's not, there's no lesson plans and no scope and sequence for K3.
Yeah, it's just Aaron's Law and that's it.
Just Aaron's Law and that's it.
So, I wanted to thank you guys. There's a lot of information here. I thank you guys for putting this together, especially. I especially found the link to Candor Health really, really, just super informative. I went through every single lesson plan. I went through all of the Aaron's Law stuff. And it was all just really great. And I do want to, specifically call out that Candor site is just speaks exactly to some of the things that have come up in conversations, right? I just want to call out a couple of them, things that are not addressed, right? Mood swings are addressed at the younger ages, right? At 4 and 5, but things that are not, masturbation, sexual feelings, not addressed. Some of that came up that what are we teaching our youngest kids? Are we teaching them about sex, right? There's not a lot of information around gender identity, and how that is at the younger grades. Just so helpful. And I encourage parents especially to come to here. And then I also think there was a piece at the PTO meeting last year. I want to say the parents can go to the Candor Health on the days that the 4th and 5th graders, they can volunteer so that they can see what the kids are being taught, but maybe not embarrassing their own kid in the same class. Which is really, really incredibly helpful. But also the thing that has come to my mind a lot over the last couple of weeks that we've been talking about this even more is that our kids are going to learn about sex in school. The question is, are they going to learn about it from their friends and trusted teachers, or just their friends?
Right.
And that's not a question, right? It is not a question if our kids are going to learn about sex in school. They will, 1,000%. But who do we want them to learn responsible information from, right? And if we want our kids to get all of their information from their buddies and YouTube and TikTok, that's going to happen no matter what. And the school board has no control over that, and we as parents don't even have a ton of control over that, because that's human nature, right? Kids are going to learn about sex from their friends. They're going to learn about sex in school. The question is, who is that information coming from? And the thing that we can do as a school board and as curriculum leaders, right, is to make sure that they're also getting good information from trusted adults who are able to teach in a respectful way, and
and, you know, help create that connection. So I thought this Candor Health was amazing. It helped me make a decision to volunteer this year with my 4th grader, and it's gonna.
Maybe you'll go to the other
him
room or the
nuts.
other class.
I'll go in the other class. But it really helped me to feel comfortable enough to be like, yeah, I'll go be a parent volunteer for that. And I know that that's going to help our relationship too. So I want to thank you guys again for putting all of this information together, for keeping abreast of all of the changes and things that are happening, and knowing that we're setting a baseline here, so that if we need to have future conversations for next school year, we've got this information, and this Candor Health, just exceptional. Thank you, really.
Thank you for.
Thank you. It's a list of facts. It's not feelings, and that's a huge thing. And like you said, they're gonna have it. Information is out there, but even parents, I'm saying but students and parents, there's a resource.
Yeah.
Okay, I heard my friends say this, but I know where to find.
Well, anecdotally, someone had called one of our school principals and said, yeah, that whole puberty thing I don't want to do that. So that,
in our eyes, our kids are just still little. But the other thing I want to say too, that I want the community to understand too, that yes, you have an option as your family to use it and use this information on your own and teach it yourself. I'm a little afraid of that. I'm sure my kids are afraid for me to be the teacher, the sole teacher of this. But that you have that option. But the option shouldn't be to take it away from another parent that wants this.
Right. Well, and when I spoke to Mr. Etheridge at the high school, because I needed information to make sure I was confident to talk to you guys, he said he's been doing this for decades, and so he's only had 2 kids in all of that time take a pass on the content, and he gave them an alternative assignment, but it is so rare. It has traditionally been so rare that folks opt out, that it's unusual, and nothing about what we're doing is different than what we had been doing. But right now we're in a situation where we are now called to be inclusive and called to be sensitive because of the prevalence of abuse. And
I guess in plain words, so like I hear that, like we're not doing anything different, but what is being asked, because this topic has come to light, and it seems that it's not different than what we're doing. So what stands out as different, or why is this, what has come out in the mandates that makes this so much when it looks on plain, I think I have an answer for that, but like you said, we're pretty much doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But what's
I think
different
when you take a look at the standards alignment for Candor, it shows how aligned the Candor is to the current standards, which is the bulk of the standards. I think what's new is how we've been asked to be inclusive and explicit about gender identification, not in 2nd grade, and explicit about helping kids as they think about their own bodies and their own lifestyle in the upper grades as they get to be young adults. That's the big change. And
I think it's, again, just making plain what's happening, because you hear so much like, oh, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. It's aligning it and outlining it in a much better way that we understand as parents what's being taught. So
yeah, and so it's really helpful that they were able to, particularly since we contract with them for those subjects, for that age group, because they've been doing this for decades. They are experts. They have proven research-based methods. We contracted with them, so it's important to know how they align with those standards, and that is explicitly outlined on the website.
Thank you, Nadine. I appreciate all of this.
this has been always been an option to parents to find this information. We did the footwork this time. So this has always been out there. You can ask about what your student is learning.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
thank you for putting it all together in
Yes,
one
thank you.
spot. Hopefully, those that need to read it can.
Well, the other thing is I've spoken to a couple of parents recently, and I've always encouraged them, if you have any concerns at all, speak to the building principal in terms of what your specific concerns are, and find out if you are concerned about what you're hearing on social media, and are they going to teach my child this topic or mention these concepts while they're in school this year. Talk to the building principal in terms of what that looks like, or if that is something. So, yeah.
Chain of command, always.
Okay. All right. Thanks,
you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you, Nadine.
All right, we're gonna move to number 7, TRS Supplemental Savings Plan.
Yes, so districts are obligated to implement the TRS savings, supplemental savings plan. Essentially what that is TRS's version of 403B and 457 options to certify staff. Those options are voluntary, but as a district, we are obligated to offer certified staff that option. Currently, we have other 403B and 457 options for staff, so this is just an additional route that certified staff can take. And the benefit of it, low maintenance fees. So the TRS's initiative is, we want certified staff to not pay so much on maintenance fees and invest your funds. So there is a positive to that. And once, if the Board of Education approves it tonight, I'll be sending all staff the email of here are the highlights, here's the contact information to TRS to sign up. Any questions?
I think it's great that we're offering more options, even required to do so or not. I think it's great we're offering more retirement saving options. Yep.
Options. Any other questions? All right. Number 8, ProCare Therapy Contract.
Yeah, so a little history. Last year, the district had a hard time finding nurses and hiring nurses, and the district went out to contract a service to hire nurses. Fortunately, we are in a better position for nurses, but we're seeing a shortage for TAs. The administration exhausted their efforts and went above and beyond to recruit TAs and do job postings, but it's at the point where we need TAs to support our students. So Jamie went out and did some research on vendors who have the manpower, who have the availability to provide TAs to the district. That cost would be $400,000, and the reason for that is we're projecting 6 TAs, 4 at South and 2 right now. We don't know where they're going to be placed, but it's at the other buildings. Jamie will be working with administration on figuring that out before guaranteed at South. Within the terms of the contract, we are able to leave the contract at any time with 30-day notice. And we'll keep the posting out there for TAs, and if we find TAs, we can always eliminate a contract TA to eliminate that cost. But that $400,000 is projected if we hire 6 TAs through the service all year, not changing, not adding on to the hires outside the contract services. So this is the big picture, $400,000 if we go that route.
So it's $400,000 for 6 full-time TAs for the school year, salary and fees to the search firm.
Yeah, so
all in.
It's all in. So the district pays, it comes out of purchase services. We pay a fee to the vendor. The vendor then distributes that fee to the salary and benefits portion to the staff. So we don't cover benefits. It's a purchase service to the vendor.
Great. Thank you.
And this is, so we are committed to using 6 TAs a year?
No, no, we're not committed to any number. This is just you know, a contract with a district, with a vendor, you know, if we need to hire 1 or 10. You know, at the moment, the administration needs 6 at the moment, but again, that number can decrease throughout the year. But this is just have an agreement between the district and the vendor.
If it increases, we can get more for that 400?
I mean, there's no, $400,000 is just 6 individuals.
Okay.
Good try.
No, I'm not sure if I understood it though. Are you saying that if we, what if it were 3? Is it 200,000 if it's 3, or what is?
So each TA hourly rate for the contract is $55 per hour.
Okay, so it's based on the hourly.
Correct.
It's not even like a, okay.
No, so it's based on the hourly rate and then the number of hours per week and the projected, the full year number of days.
Now I understand.
Right.
That's the $400,000. Yep.
So how does that compare to like if we did find 6 TAs who applied through the posting and we hired them?
Well, the hourly rates are different. And then also we would provide that benefit cost and also long-term. You know, with the 6 TAs, we're not hiring long-term on the payroll and staffing. So if we go outside and just hire on our own, we can keep those TAs.
So, this was so SACID used and is using a significant amount of contract staff for the same positions because TAs have been the most challenging roles to fill. And it was a significant driver of cost, which we'll talk about in my board reports a little bit. But one thing that SACID was able to do is for some of the staff, we were able to bring them on. So almost buy out their contract. Is that an option with this contract?
Yes.
If we have a staff here that's like, dude, you match the district, like.
There is language, but you know, within the language, it's a number of days or a number of months after the contract. But yes, we can. It's up to that individual based on, you know, salary and benefits. But yes, you know, after their term, within the language, they have X amount of days, months until we recruit them. Yes.
Awesome.
And you know, the vendor is very helpful. They've been working with Jamie throughout this process, and you know, they're willing to work with the district. They did eliminate some terms that we did not like, so they're willing to help. They know the shortage, but then I also want to let the board and community know that, you know, there's a tentative budget of a negative $2 million. I will be adding, you know, if the board approves this, I will be adding that to the adopted budget in September. But at the end of the day, we need to look out for our students and our best interest for the students.
Kevin, what were you going to say about the comparison between?
You know, I was going to say roughly, you know, you're probably looking at our cost is probably, you know, 25 to 30% of that cost if we were able to find the 6 on our own. But you're paying the service, you know, not everything that you're paying is going to that TA. The service, obviously, they're paying for their overhead as well. So definitely, though, we're going to keep looking for TAs, and as we are able to hire our own, we can eliminate the contracted TAs.
Yeah, and you know, we're not set in stone of 6 through this vendor. This is just saying the district is working with this vendor on X amount of TAs.
And the 30-day out also helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Me,
Yeah.
at least, feel comfortable about it.
Yes. Yep.
So we're kind of up against, our backs are against the wall. We unfortunately need the people, don't we?
Yeah. Without the TAs at South, we would have to delay the opening of South because it's not a safe environment.
Right.
You know, so an early childhood program, you're required to have X number of TAs based upon the number of students. So we would not be able to open our doors at South if we don't contract the TAs.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue our efforts on recruiting and getting TAs to apply through the district.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We'll move to the P card program.
Yeah, so currently the district has a policy regarding the P card programs. Section 4, Article 55, we have a policy with P cards, and it breaks down specifically, you know, purchase limits and authorization forms, and it goes in detail, 10 detailed description on what the district can use the P card for. We historically have never had a P card. An increase of PD, an increase on payments through credit cards and student activities, it would be in the best interest to get that P card implemented, to help out the administration, to help out the secretaries make purchases. Implementing this P card through BMO Harris, the district also gets a rebate on the number of purchases made through the P cards. So their initiative is for school districts to use the P card, for the education and the students, and then in return, they'll kick back a small percentage of the, yearly transactions back to the district. So again, this is just to, help streamline purchases through the building levels and help the kids. But the district already has a policy in place, and this is just to implement the P card system.
Why have we not implemented it before?
I can't speak to historically what's been going on.
I'm just curious if there was a discussion about concerns about doing this.
No, I don't think there's concerns about doing it. The one thing that's occurred over time is we're finding fewer vendors are taking POs, for instance.
Oh, got it, yeah.
So and there's more and more online purchasing, than there was in the past, and so it's more kind of we're running into more and more challenges, and so this will streamline that process for the district.
And who gets them?
Yeah, that was my question too.
Yeah, so if the board approves it tonight, what I'm gonna be doing is, the goal is to have a P card for every administrator. At the high school, they'll have two, one for student activity, and junior high as well, student activity, and for the administrator. But the administrator is the sole responsible card holder for that P card. I will also draw up authorization forms that each administrator signs on, you're responsible for the P card, here are the transactions that's approved, here are the non-approved transactions, to keep everyone in track, to make sure that it is a big responsibility to have this P card, and if you abuse it, we're gonna be taking it away. And then the third part is reconciliations. Because each card holder will have a card, they will be distributed bank statements each month, they'll hold the receipts, and the card holder reconciles each statement, gives it to the business office, I'll review it, work with the accounts payable, and sending payments off to BMO Harris.
So I have to, as an operator from way back in the day, went from a petty cash type system to a P card system. And it was one of the single best changes that our company ever could have done. It streamlined the process. When I needed to get random things, when I needed to run to the store because I was out of tape, it just made what previously was a really, really challenging process into something that was super easy so that I could take better care of my customers. And so I think this is great. The doing all the reconciliation myself as an operator was more helpful for me as well. And it was a great learning experience for the managers who worked for me as well. So this is a big win. It's a win for the business office. And I think it's a big streamliner. I think it's a good addition to the district. And really, the only challenge for us was always just the issues with don't lose your P card.
Don't lose your receipt.
Don't lose your receipt. Don't lose your P card. That's just the fraud piece of it was kind of the most scary thing. But also after 5 or 6 years, there was. It never happened. So
yeah,
really
and I have worked in previous districts that everyone had a P card, and there's been situations where the P card looks familiar to someone else's card, and there is fraud aspects of it, but with the authorization form, it gives that card holder responsibility, the bank reconciliation, and a couple key points since I've started, we've been seeing PD increase with staff and administrators. So, you know, having this P-card system, we don't, you know, administrators don't have to wait a month to get reimbursed from the district, you know, if it's a high cost. So, you know, it also helps out those who are making purchases that is benefiting the district.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this to us to approve, yeah.
So, nice segue into our action item. The first is resolution authorizing issuance of the individual procurement cards. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the P-card agreement with the Bank of Montreal as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Conover? Yes. Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Passes. Next, number 2, resolution adopting TRS supplemental savings agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to adopt the TRS supplemental savings plan as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Conover? Yes. Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Number 3, resolution passes. Number 3, approval of ProCare therapy contract for the 2022-2023 school year. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the contract with ProCare Therapy for temporary paraprofessional staffing needs for the 2022-23 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Conover? Yes. Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to go to the superintendent's report.
So just a couple items in my report. One is earlier this evening, we had a presentation by the School Board Association, update on the superintendent search. And we do have dates for upcoming community focus groups. August 31st at 5:30 at Westmont High School, September 1st at 5 o'clock at Manning Elementary, and then September 7th at 6:30 at Westmont High School. And I believe a communication already went out this evening to families. We're working through the village. We'll get the signage. But similar to how we advertise the survey, we'll do everything we can to advertise these focus groups. And these focus groups are not just for school families, but for any community members who live in the district. They can attend those focus groups. They last about 45 minutes. People can count on about 45 minutes. And then we're also working on, we don't know definitively if we'll be able to do this, but we're working on childcare. So that if somebody is having a difficult time finding childcare, working through our NHS, hopefully to be able to provide services through NHS for that as well. And then our fall athletics season is underway for both our junior high and high school, including this Friday is our first home football game. So hopefully people can come out and support our athletic programs at both our junior high and high school.
Yes, my son asked me to reschedule a family night so he can go to the first game, and Grandma was like, yes. I said, okay.
Okay. We'll move along to board reports.
Oh, that's me. Sorry, let me pull it up here, guys. So, I had, the most recent talking points from the last SACID meeting. So SACID, just like us, is kicking it back up, meeting every month. And I serve on the finance committee and then the board of control and the governing board. And so the biggest real thing that kind of comes out of this is we had a lot of discussion, and SACID has been talking a lot about tuition bills. For those, just a quick recap. Previously, SACID would kind of charge for services, and then at the end of the school year, districts would get like an additional charge for what they actually used, and it was a very kind of like hard way to bill, and it was particularly challenging on districts who could sometimes get bills in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for services depending on the services and their needs. So SACID is trying to work towards a set tuition rate for each of their programs. They have a number of different programs, so that the schools that are part of SACID know, like, if I send a child to the directions program, this is the cost per day, and that's the set. So part of kind of the previous time at SACID leading up to this was SACID had built up a very large fund balance of $9 million. And the finance committee and the SACID team has been working to return the majority of that fund balance to the member districts. Being that SACID is operated by the member districts, there's not much need for a significant fund balance, because if something significant were to happen, the SACID board would come to the member districts to get funding, additional funding for something. So we're trying to return that money back to the school districts in a variety of different ways. So one of the ways, and part of this came from the significant increase in contracted employees in the last year. SACID ran a $1.8 million deficit, really from staff costs for the most part. And so we approved taking that $1.7 million and covering it out of the fund balance instead of going to the member districts to cover that deficit. And so we approved this one-time situation because we adjusted to the more standard tuition bill. And we anticipate that won't happen again. That was kind of a one-time situation. But this is all part of this process of getting to a more standard tuition rate that the districts can count on. But we understand that there will be a couple of years of like, holy moly. And part of the reason we decided to do it was because we had that very significant fund balance that we'd be able to cover some of these. Didn't expect that to turn out that way. So just kind of an ongoing update on that, on SACID's goal, their business office goal of getting to a straight tuition for each of their programs, and really much more simplified billing for the student districts, which will decrease costs at SACID, which also decrease costs for us because they serve us as well. So that's really the big thing at SACID.
Thank you. Any other questions for Leah?
No questions. I got statements if this is the time. If you guys are interested in PR committee, reach out to Jamie Max in the district office because he's trying to get dates together for that. And that's open for the community as well. On a side note, for you guys to take back to the office possibly, Nadine's still here. Can we change the logo on the website to the 50 years logo?
Yep.
And then can we get maybe some current pictures of the school without snow? That's it.
There's got to be something in the...
Right, there's something somewhere. But yes, the pictures come up and they're all the snow ones and you're like, oh, I don't want to think about that.
And I just want to say I, again, applaud you guys, board members, because it's a lot of hard work, a lot of issues, and I thank you guys for your comments and your solution finding. It's not just, I want to see this, I want a pool, sorry. Considering everything that, our students need, our teachers need, our community needs, and finding solutions for that way, and to make progress, to make plans, and not just to kick decisions down the road. So I applaud you guys for continuing to work on every issue that there is, and a lot of work to be done, but I appreciate your efforts and your ideas for solutions. So thank you.
Right back at you.
Yep.
There's no other public comments, so we'll move to future meetings and events. First is Miller's Back to School Night, August 25th at 6 p.m. at Miller. Elementary PTO Night, August 29th, 7 p.m. at Manning. Westmont High School Back to School Night is August 31st, 6:30 p.m. And then there's a Manning Back to School Night, September 1st at 6 p.m. There's no school on Labor Day, September 5th. Westmont Junior High Curriculum Night is September 8th at 6 p.m. And then our next CUSD 201 board meeting, September 13th,
And
6 p.m., but we also
we have a special board meeting next Tuesday at 5 o'clock at South for the approval of the HVAC bid for the junior high.
So that will actually be our next one, and then the following will be the 13th.
Can I add again and repeat? Next Wednesday, the 31st, before the Back to High School night, is one of the focus groups at the high school at 5:30. The first, right before Manning's Back to School night at 5 PM at Manning, another focus group. And then on the 7th, there is a third focus group at the high school again, 6:30. It is on the website. When you open up the page, it pops up.
We reiterate, we love the community's ideas and involvement, and I'll say it again for Leah, committee involvement is much appreciated also.
Join us.
One more plea. All right, so next, the chair will entertain a motion to enter close, no,
Nope.
sir, we don't need to enter close session.
Nope.
The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the August 23rd, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?